Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shop Talk. It is me, Fable, your primary host this session. Tracy is currently very busy working on book things. I don't know why my voice broke saying that, but she's working on book things. And so this session of Shop Talk, we have a special guest co-host, Ashley Nichols.
Hello.
Yes, Ashley Nichols is our lead cleanup, and she is also the host of the podcast Honeycast. That's a lot of cast all at once. I'm sorry about that. Newt also is currently in the middle of Hellspace, so he cannot be here. So our moderator for today is Mike, and no, he will not be doing voice requests. So please don't ask.
I probably won't be talking much either. I'm mostly moderating the chat and adjusting the document for things. Yeah. So yeah, hello and goodbye.
Yes, Mike just has a job today. Instead of just being that goofball who talks. And our guest for this Shop Talk is Spike Trotman, our boss.
Oh God! Don't put it that way.
Spike,
what a terrible thought.
Yeah, Spike is she is an artist and writer, a comic artist who founded Iron Circus Comics. She is, as I have dubbed her, the queen of Kickstarter. She is amazingly talented at fundraising. She has learned so much about how to use public fundraising to make your projects get off the ground. And Iron Circus is this publishing house full of amazing stable of creators, including this project right now. So Lackadaisy is involved, and Spike, if you want to give any kind of background on other projects that you're involved in and that kind of thing. So talk about a little about yourself.
I tend to introduce myself jokingly. I should note I tend to introduce myself as founder, owner, and editor for life at Iron Circus.
Yes. And now you can call Iron Circus a multimedia company, even.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so fucking cringe. But the thing is, here's the thing. Okay, all right, not to sound like that way or anything, but when you go to comic conventions, or at least when I remember comic conventions, everybody, Tumbleweed blows by. Yeah. When you would go to comic conventions and you go to Artist Alley, there'd always be this complete jackass in Artist Alley who would talk about his air quotes multimedia company, and when you found out what he meant, it's I work in an office and I steal photocopies from the photocopy machine to make my mini comic that I staple together at home. And when I call myself a air quotes multimedia company, it's me fantasizing about this ultimately becoming a cartoon, because deep down all I consider comics are fancy storyboards to eventually turn into cartoons. I haven't produced a comic or a cartoon, but I think so highly of myself, and I'm so sure my weird fantasies will come true. I'm calling myself a multimedia company preemptively, and everybody I know rolls their fucking eyes at that guy. And so when me and Fable and Tracy were just in a chat one day, and I think it was you, Fable, who brought up, yeah, I guess Iron Circus is a multimedia company, I was just instantly ew! It literally is that. It is literally that thing now. It was a comics publisher, and I still refer to it mentally and professionally as a comics publisher, but in reality, it is a multimedia company because it produces multiple kinds of media, and words have meanings, and it fulfills the requirement to wear that label no matter how much it grosses me out.
I was not ready for you to call your company being a multimedia company cringe.
It is! So gross! Oh my God, this dude in Artist Alley always calls, yes, I went to see a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and I went home and immediately made this thing that I think a comic is, but in actuality, it's a comic that's based on a movie, and those are two totally different fucking mediums. And so it's the most incompetent thing you've ever seen, but I'm completely convinced it's going to be a movie. Therefore, I'm a multimedia company. Here is the logo for my multimedia company. There are 1 in 4 odds it's a howling wolf over a silhouette of a moon, because for some reason, it's my favorite logo of that kind of guy.
Okay, but let me throw this at you. Is that also just as bad as those dudes who will email you out of nowhere and are like, hello, this is Howling Wolf Studios, and we would like to hire you to work on our newest animated project, and it's one dude who's done, like, all of the boarding and everything himself, and then he adds in at the end, we haven't currently made any money, but once the project gets off the ground, I'd be happy to pay you.
Oh God, that's just like... That is just like when people find out that I can draw things, they always ask me, hey, can you work on my children's book idea? No, it hasn't been written. No, I don't have an idea. No, I don't have money. But it's just so easy. It's just a kid's book, and we'll split the profits, I swear. You just have to do literally everything.
Oh my God.
Like, every person, with the exception of one person, who is someone I've already done a lot of work with, who actually pays me money, who I like and whose writing I like, who had the writing, and, like, I was happy to work with him. But he didn't just show up out of nowhere and go, like, hi, work on this random project with me. Children's media is totally easy to do. I have great ideas because I myself have also been a child who read books at some point, I think.
Yeah, the idea guy. Okay, if you go to the Iron Circus website, there is a link that says want to be published by Iron Circus, and it has a list of things entitled what we want and what we don't want. And under what we don't want is we don't want ideas. I don't give a shit about your idea.
Yeah, ideas are cheap. It's like, because you can have an amazing idea and, like, no execution skill and will be garbage, or you can have a shit idea but amazing execution and it's the best thing ever. Like, Lego Movie, on paper, sounds terrible.
Oh, it sounds awful.
That movie was great. Because execution matters. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, that exists for a reason. Every rule under what we don't want exists for a reason. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I still, despite that rule going, I don't want your idea. Here is how you send Iron Circus a proposal. It requires a level of work, and it's a hurdle that high. You know, it's like a curb. And if you can't get over that curb, I know for a fact you're not in it. You know what I mean? So if you can't execute a proposal to our standard, that eliminates a whole lot of bullshit already. But nevertheless, we get tons of idea guys. And I especially love it when they start out the email literally insulting you.
Oh my God. A negging thing. I did that once when I was depressed and 22 and like in the middle of the recession, and like, this is insane and I don't recommend you doing this, but this was only because the start of YouTube game streamers, where this one guy whose work I followed, again, I was 22 and stupid, so please forgive me. This is not advice, and I cringe at the fact that I did this. Had some terrible graphics design on his stuff that he was just starting to get, like, merch and a website up, and I sent him an email saying, that sucks, I could do better.
Whoa!
And he said, okay, I'll hire you.
Go! Oh my God!
It was, and the only reason that flew was that all this was super new. He was also young, and and it was just it was 2010, and this was still considered okay, somewhat. Do not do this, for the love of God. That is not the way to get a job.
Fable, how do you walk around with that much titanium hanging between your legs? Jesus,
dude, I have chronic back problems.
The email we got, it's like, here's the thing. Oh, if anyone here wants, like, a fucking cheat code, like, if you want to be published by any publisher, this is hardly unique to Iron Circus. Yeah. But if you want a cheat code, like, research the company, and when you're doing your cover letter or your release form or whatever they may require of you, and give them what they require, just say, hey, so-and-so, like the name of the head editor. It's like, or in parentheses, name of, an assistant editor or two. Yeah. Here's my proposal. I really love your work. Last year's book, Hamster Parade on Mars, was fantastic. It was wonderful. And I really picture my book next to it on the shelf, so here's my proposal, thank you. And, like, the editor,
okay, so operative word is Hamster Parade on Mars is the cheat code to get published by anybody.
Exactly, Hamster Parade on Mars.
Yes.
The cheat code. And it's like, oh, you researched, you cared, you looked at this publishing company and went, oh, this one is a good fit for what I'm doing. So that's already someone going, oh, okay, good. But this guy, the email I got from this guy was very. First of all, he started off going, hey, are you freaks looking for ideas? Because I got one that I'm not going to talk off.
Okay, like, but that might work on me. But don't do that.
Yeah, it might, like, don't fucking show up and call me a fucking freak, for starters. And then
we have to go on a few dates first before we do that.
2 or 3 utterly forgettable sentences. Like, anyone who's in a creative industry has had that experience, whether at, like, a family reunion or in line at the bank or just, like, wherever. And they mention what they do, and they're immediately accosted by this dude. He's like, oh, hey, yeah, I have an idea. I got a really good idea. You know, I should let you have it. It's here's the most banal bullshit you've ever heard in your entire life. What do you think? You know, and, like, it was that level. And then he's like, I got 1 million where that comes from.
I'm
Email
sure
me
you do.
It's like, get out.
Oh, boy. You're talking titanium balls. It's like... I would love to consistently have the confidence of a mediocre white man.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Seriously.
It would be so good.
I understand how people can be offended by that. Lord grant me the confidence of a mediocre white man. But speaking from a position of a person who has now run a publishing company for 13, 14 years almost, and has overseen the submission slush pile for that long. If I get a submission that does not follow the rules, is specifically what we said not to send us, does not include anything we required, or is just like so completely off the fucking wall, or if we reject something, person cops fucking attitude, not saying it's impossible to go any other way, but chances are super good that person is in one demographic.
I'm glad that I broke out the vodka for this session. Yeah.
I work with tons of really cool white guys, really cool non-mediocre white guys. But if someone's going to be a petulant asshole,
yeah,
you know, like Johnny Carson with like his turban on, holding the letter to his head, I can guess certain things about them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sometimes people just
the latest one I got was when we rejected a proposal. It's like the thing we got back was like, hey, this isn't good for our company. You know, we won't be publishing this. Thanks for your time. Mm-hmm. And the reply was like, I feel sorry for you. This is going to be a bestseller. It took everything It took everything in my soul not to write back and go like, okay, listen here, Slick. There's a copyright note on this from 2016, so you've been shilling it for 4 years. So clearly I was not your first choice, sweetheart. Secondly, if you're gonna draw with colored pencil, I strongly suggest you look up Melanie Gilman's work, because what you have just handed me is strictly third grade material. It is not a mystery that you keep shopping this over and over and no one is taking it on. So how about we calm it down? There's this thing, I'm sure a lot of folks already know about it, but there's this thing called Dunning-Kruger.
Yes.
And the Dunning-Kruger effect is basically true incompetence doesn't understand how incompetent it is. So incompetence cannot recognize itself. So when you get a really bad submission, or there's a coworker who is astonishingly awful at their job, and you just sort of stand there with your mouth hanging open and your eyes bugging out going, how do you live your life this way? It's because they have no idea how bad they are at anything.
I will not lie to you. I lay awake at night or have nightmares that I am that person. Like, that is my biggest fear in life.
That is actually a great sign you are not that person. Because, like, no, a huge disqualifier for Dunning-Kruger is worrying that you are incompetent. Because if you worry about being competent, there's no way you're so oblivious to your own incompetence that you have Dunning-Kruger.
Yay, I'm free!
Yay.
You're free!
Also, real quick to insert, Jacob Takanashi for $5 says, this is to support funding for Hamster Parade on Mars.
You heard it, Spike. We gotta do it now. This is high-key the best idea that Iron Circus has ever had, and we gotta get on top of this before someone else takes it.
Also, hello, Jacob. Thank you. Jacob is one of the musicians and voice actors on my project.
And I just want to say really quick, my actual, like, my go-to fake book whenever I was talking examples used to be Funny Kittens Go to the Moon. And then I was informed by a friend, hey, you know, that's like basically a real children's book. Like, my kid has a book that might as well be called Funny Kittens Go to the Moon. So unless you want people thinking you're talking shit about this one book, you're going to have to come up with the new fake book title. So Hamster Parade on Mars is my new Funny Kittens Go to the Moon.
We
got $20 from... you can say it if you want.
20 Canadian from Nox Kitsune. Thank you, Nox. Who said, I just want to say that if you spend this whole shop talk just recounting bad application stories, we will all love it.
I mean, it is good. It's good info on what not to do.
I have to say, though, like, 90% of the applications Iron Circus gets, like, the people are totally fucking cool about it. And, you know, we reject most of the ones we get because we just, you know, we cannot publish more than, you know, 10, 12, 15 books a year. And the volume of talent out there is fucking brain melting at this point, I have to say, because I'm old, so allow me to, like, roll it back a bit. When Tokyo Pop was, like, dominating Barnes and Nobles, where you would walk into any Barnes and Noble and you would see, like, 14-year-olds cross-legged in the aisle, like, speed reading Fruits Basket because they can't afford every single copy of Fruits Basket there, so they're just, like, trying to fucking frantically read all of it while mom shops for shoes, like, 2 stores down or whatever. And those kids, you know, grew up, and a significant percentage, obviously not the majority, but a significant percentage of them went on to want to make comics. And while that was also happening, you know, Scholastic decided to roll the dice on a funny little book called Bone in the late 90s. And they started making fucking mad cash on Bone. Like, oh shit, there's something to this comic thing. And then they took on Raina Telgemeier, and then they just took on Kazu Kibuishi, I believe his name is. And they took on more creators, and they start. And here's the thing about Scholastic, not to, like, get to nuts and bolts how the sausage is made. Scholastic has a ridiculously unfair advantage in the book market because it is literally the only publishing company that can walk into schools and say, shut it the fuck down, we're here to sell you some books.
I gotta say, we love the book fair. Like, the book fair was always the best thing.
And the parents love it. Yeah. Because reading is good.
You go into the book fair, you know, they pile in the library with the colorful displays, and then you as a kid get to go in, and there's all these fun books that you get to read. I don't know what book fairs are like anymore, but man, you went in, and that's where I went and picked up some Animorphs, and the Goosebumps, and all that shit. You know, you wanna get your, kids' books jazz on. This is pre-Harry Potter for me. Harry Potter did not exist. There was not even really a YA category at the time. But Scholastic Books was YA, basically.
And again, they fucking just roll up and they just, you know, you don't get to have class today. Today you're buying books from us. And the way it's positioned is like, oh, you don't want your child to buy a book at the book fair? Okay, I thought you wanted them to get an education, but I get it. I get it. So it's like, of course, the parents, like, sigh, reach in the pocket and hand their kid $15 to go get a book. And Scholastic does this at, like, every elementary school and some middle schools every year in America.
Yeah.
So they have this ridiculous advantage over literally every other publisher on Earth. And that was a huge bonus to when they were selling Bone, because they found out the kids went absolute fucking apeshit for Bone. And Bone plus Tokyo Pop means suddenly, like 10 years down the line, there are more people who wanted to make comics than ever before. And they are starting to make comics now, and the sheer volume of ridiculously talented, like, 22 to 30-year-olds is crazy. And people sometimes ask me, like, you run a really small publishing company, and how do you feel about, how do you feel about Random House, and how do you feel about Scholastic, and how do you feel about HarperCollins out here starting these graphic novel publishers? And I'm like, part of the reason I'm okay with it is they have absolutely kicked my ass trying to auction for certain creators, and that's just gonna happen. I'm very small. A lot of very large companies have completely kicked my ass trying to get certain books. But there is so much good shit out there. There's so many people who are like 23 and casually amazing. And I am never going to want for creators. And for that, I am eternally grateful.
Spike, am I casually amazing? I'm not 23, but...
You are absolutely amazing, I assure
Yay!
you. No, you are not 23.
Pat on the head for Fable!
Although I imagine you're equally astonished and horrified by these super talented 23-year-olds that are suddenly everywhere.
I get excited because from my vision, it's like, oh look, future coworkers / employees. It's like, it's not a threat. It's more like, oh cool, the sum total of skilled people who I can talk to, especially in the future as they get older and they get, like, mature into the craft a little bit more, increases over time. Like, there are, the pool was, like, much smaller when I was a kid, and it was growing at the time. I mean, like, when DeviantArt really took off, and it just keeps growing, and I know, like, for a lot of kids, they're overwhelmed by the scale of social media now, and I'm always like, I am so sorry, this sucks. But they are so good. They are so good at an earlier and earlier age, and I'm really looking forward to, like, the future of animation, because as far as I see it, it's a very bright future, provided that enough people stick with it. Because I think that's my big fear always, is people just drop out. Too many people drop out, and then we have an absence of amazing animators and creative people in that medium. Because I remember when I was in college and Disney was like, wow, we're pulling the plug on traditional animation. That's it, CG only. Oh, by the way, everything's outsourced, period, now. And it was so disappointing. But I feel like we're, the wave is rising. Like, we're starting on, like, a crest of indie animation really coming to the fore. Between Netflix, really, taking up all these projects, like, animated projects for adults that aren't just funny, ha-ha, Family Guy clone. And, A24 picked up Has-Been, which was super good news.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear that.
That is wildly exciting. Yeah. That is wildly exciting.
There's our project. There's, so many, little indie projects that are getting, self-funded, finding merchandise, coming through Patreon, coming through with Kickstarter. There's a lot more variety and ways to get funded, too. So let's say Kickstarter shot the bed tomorrow. It would suck, but that's not the only platform anymore.
No.
And so you're a lot less vulnerable nowadays than you used to be. So I'm just really interested in seeing where that's going to go, because I don't really have a lot of faith in the major studios to do much in the way of interesting storytelling. They are really, really motivated to keep it as safe as possible until somebody, and this is consistent throughout history, basically, especially with this medium, is that major studios don't go and do something daring until indie people establish that people want it and that there's a business, there's money to be made in it. So it's always, the small guys pushing it to the front. Never expect a major studio to be, the people who are at the fore of anything. So.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think this is a thing that it's super important for people to understand, that when you are working at Hollywood levels, and when I say Hollywood, I don't mean specifically this one spot over here in California. I mean a scale. I mean a global entertainment production scale.
Industry,
so when I say
capital I. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are working with people who are intensely risk averse to the point of cowardice. And what that shakes out to mean is they want to make all the money in the world for what they invest into the piece of entertainment they decide to create. They want not just your money. They want money from bigots. They want money from assholes. They want money from people who think it's people who are the most sort of coarse, reserved, backwards people you can think of. And they don't change that until the overwhelming tide of public opinion makes it safe. So when they make a movie, they don't want to do anything that is going to turn anybody off in any significant way, because then that is a whole chunk of possible money they could have made that they don't get to make now. And ticket money is just as green as anybody else's. Asshole money is just as green as anybody else's. And while it is true, people will find something to complain about and be angry about in literally any piece of media. There is a sort of safe bet level that Hollywood very sort of consciously adheres to. Mm-hmm. And that is why, that is frankly, in my opinion, the one thing that is not just keeping like serious, when I say serious, I mean like not a comedy or a All in the Family clone animated series from really taking off. It is also what is stopping adult graphic novels from happening. I've said this a bunch of times on Twitter. What needs to happen for adult graphic novels to be a thing is there needs to be a bone for adult graphic novels. There needs to be a graphic novel that is explicitly and unerringly for an adult audience that sells 4 million copies in a year.
And you're not going to see the major studios do that. They want to, like, the indies have to do it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what's going to happen when that happens, there are moles all over every industry. I guarantee you right now, animation is full of people who are like, I would crawl across glass to direct a mature adult audience animated series. And when I say mature, I mean like adult themes, not like banging. And there are people
you guys have no idea how much glass that all of us on the crew have crawled over just to get this made so far. There is, not to say that I'm miserable or anything, but it takes a lot of hard work. Like, my entire life is booze cats right now. That's it. Yeah.
And graphic novels are the same thing. The graphic novel editorial over at really big companies are full of people who are like, I would crawl through glass to publish, like to have my editorial oversight of a line of adult graphic novels. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I am not in charge here. I don't hold the purse strings. But if that book comes out and it sells 3 million copies, 4 million copies in a year, the first thing that editor is going to do is snatch up that book and run into the next board meeting and waving it, going, see?
Yes. And this is actually a good way to segue into our main topic as well, because one of the motivations for doing the Kickstarter wasn't just getting the funding to make this little short pilot. So that it was also to provide hard numbers that we could show to studios in the future, once the short is made, or even potentially before, that people want this. This is how much money they were willing to dump on this, even with the scale of the audience that we have, with the nature of this project, everything. And this is how much it made, and it broke records.
Exactly. Actually, if you go and look on Kickstarter right now, you will see that Lackadaisy is the most funded short project on Kickstarter. It has outfunded Hair Love, the Oscar winner.
And we're not shitting on Hair Love. Like, that is amazing.
No, we are not.
No, hardly. That guy actually came out and he was like, yo, guys, congratulations. And we're like, dude. Yeah. And like,
he follows me on Twitter now.
Yeah, that's really freaking cool. It was just like, Hair Love guy said, yo, congrats. And I have to say that the next project that, like, tops us, I'm gonna, unless it's like something shitty like Nazis go to Mars instead of Hamster Parade, I will thumbs up and be like, yo guys, that's amazing, because what it does is that it opens the door for so many people down the line. Once you see, like that's one reason why A24 picking up Has-Been was so exciting, because it means that studios are interested in this. A major studio with major critical reception was interested in an indie animation project that got started off of YouTube, that was entirely self-funded, and went, we'll take the risk on this. And do you know how many, like, other people are, like, looking at that kind of thing and going, we want something like that? So the potential for your project, if you have something ready and you're currently making it and you're putting it out there, it can happen for you, and now you have proof of how. And you know, stuff like that, it causes a ripple effect. So that's why that's a big deal. Beyond just, it's nice that Mike has a secure job in the future. There are
two things that kind of concern me about Has-Been, though, and my friends and I, we refer to it sometimes as the Wonder Woman effect, where okay, let's say, A24 has funded it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it comes out and it only does What that will do is have a chilling effect on anybody doing anything similar for years to come. Because it can't just do it has to do blockbuster for anyone to give a shit. And that's not fair, but that's how it is.
That's one reason why, but I also have more confidence in that doing well versus like some other random thing that they might pick up, because that thing had like a major audience that's been able to sustain for much longer than any typical like viral video that appears on YouTube. The fact that it sustained was like, it didn't just, hey, this got 1 million views and what do you know? Because there's lots of videos on YouTube that just suddenly get 1 million views. But something that like keeps growing and keeps going, and like when they put out new content that also makes those numbers or better, that's pretty impressive. So
one of the things I think about a lot is, I'm going to try and figure out a way to say this, because I'm assuming this will be a VOD later, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be available for playback later.
Okay, so I'm going to try and say, I have a friend, and my friend's name is John. Mm-hmm. And John works for... how to say this? Okay, John works for Corporation Incorporated, all right? And
Corp, got
Corporation Incorporated has an adult animation department that is literally just the passion project of one person, and it now consists of that person and their 2 assistants. And John, I have figuratively taken by the collar, and I have shaken John. And I have said, John, Corporation Incorporated really wants to put itself on the map as a streaming service. What Corporation Incorporated should do is look at Netflix, because what Netflix has right now is Midnight Gospel, and BoJack Horseman, and Beastars, and Big Mouth, and Love, Death, and Robots, and Castlevania, and Tuca, well, it had Tuca and Birdie, and all these other things that, like, it's adult animation, and yes, a lot of it is comedy, but not all of it, and it is really putting itself out there and doing strange and interesting things. And we are currently in a pandemic, and who knows when we will be back to shooting live human beings on live sets in the future. If Corporation Incorporated wants to make a name for itself, which is super important for it to have an identity, which it currently doesn't have, why aren't you on fucking Twitter right now handing out animated series to all these fucking kids out here who are like 25, 26, have several years of animation experience under their belt, and are casually posting the most raw, unbelievable, incredible shit ever? Just greenlight 5 adult animated series.
Dude,
see what happens.
Like, you could give, like, a lot of those folks are 1-person, 2-person, very small crews, and it wouldn't cost that much money. Be like, just give me, like, 1 or 2 episodes, 5 minutes, like just like an MTV model, where it's just like you just collect a bunch and see how they do. It wouldn't be that big of an investment. Like we're going very ambitious with Lackadaisy. Like we raised that much money. We're trying to make it like as quality as possible. But I got to be honest, like you don't have to raise that much money to make your own indie project.
No, you really don't. I mean, there's a lot of people who are just like fucking. Oh my god. I don't understand why no one has given Worthy Kids a series yet. Like, what the fuck? What is happening?
I mean, I
please, for the love of God, give Worthy a series.
Yeah.
Worthy also mentioned someone called Joni Phillips, who has done like these really interesting little indie shorts. So like, I checked them out after Worthy suggested it after one of the shop talks, and I was just really impressed with like the weird, esoteric, like warped animation and like the kind of like whimsical darkness of their work was just really, really interesting. And I'm like, somebody please like give Joni like a bunch of like just like some money to just like make a bunch of shorts, because I bet they would make like something really interesting for you. Like it would be extremely unique. or buy up the work they already have. That's another thing that you could do, because a lot of these people are already putting out work. Like imagine if you just purchase the licensing rights for a certain number of years. And that would be amazing. Like, because that's the other thing, is that these folks are making stuff. What if you license that for a certain period of time? I bet that's a lot cheaper than getting, like, Teen Wolf 2 or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, I'm going to be really fucking. I'm going to be very diplomatic, and I'm going to keep my thoughts to myself on certain things. But I really think sort of like now is the time to really go out there and fucking just like see what these folks who like have never had an animated series are doing. And like instead of trying to trade on nostalgia, maybe try something new and different and strange. And because it's like everyone's stuck at home right now. Everyone's stuck at home.
It's like, what else are you gonna watch? It's like there is an opening right now. There is an opening. You might as well. Like look at anime releases. Like everything got like canned for a bit there because nobody could go into studios, and so suddenly any anime that came out this summer would get watched because there wasn't this huge glut. And so even like just total trash and be like, fuck it, I'll watch it because what else am I gonna watch? And it's like, oh hey, that was actually kind of charming, but would have gotten noticed like if not for what's going on. Maybe not, I don't know, and I don't make a career out of watching anime like a lot of the critic reviewers that I'm looking at, and those guys are desperate for content to review because like they don't have as much to do right now. And so it's like this is a crap moment right now, but if you see an opening, take advantage of it. God damn. I keep telling Corporation Incorporated, like, just fucking. I'm not saying they should like go out and rip people off, twirl my mustache like a silent movie villain. I'm just saying, like, you could probably go out there and get for a really reasonable price a lot of animated series signed. And anybody from a Corp, please dump a bunch of money on Lackadaisy. We will make gold for you.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm sure Spike would love that.
Fucking do it. Just like fucking like what's it? Shia LaBeouf. Do it.
Do it, motherfucker. Just do it.
These people. At the end of the day, these large corporations, they are helmed by, I don't want to say cowards, but extremely risk-averse people who are not just playing with their own personal fortunes.
Yeah.
For
it's
the
like
most
they don't
part,
want to lose their jobs. Like if they make a bet, it's like I can even understand their position because it's like they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't know what the future is. They have to make certain decisions, and like if they don't make a safe decision, then people come down on their heads. They could lose their job. A lot of people could lose their job. So I understand. Like sometimes when we get interviewed, like they always ask like, "Oh, how did people react to you guys when you were like pitching around to different studios?" And it's like they'll frame it as like everybody was really dismissive, but they weren't dismissive. They were like, "We don't know how to sell this project to the higher ups." That was what it was. They were interested, but they didn't know how to sell it to the kinds of people who are just so risk averse. They're like, there's no example of this that already exists. I mean, when the best example you can turn to for Boozcast is Boardwalk Empire, which is honestly just totally and everything except it takes place during the 1920s and has like that period piece aesthetic, has nothing to do with it. Yeah. Like, how do you convince those folks? And so the best way we could think of to convince those folks was just to make it. It's like, because we were like, okay, I think we can fund this. And so to segue into funding, I mean, yes, please
funding,
big studios, fund us. But at the same time, how do you fund your project? And that's the core question of today. So
I would like to talk about just sort of the Iron Circus approach to Kickstarter, if I may.
Please do. And Ashley, if you have anything to interject, of course, because you have more experience with merchant stuff. So
I think it's super important to note that all of this is coming from the opinion of someone who, like, one of the things that I get a lot these days is people are like, oh man, I want to launch a Kickstarter. I have this great idea. I have the whole page like planned out in my head and everything, but I'm just so anxious about it not funding, and I'm just so anxious about launching it. And I just want to know how do you get over the anxiety of launching a Kickstarter? Because just thinking about it just makes the chill go up my spine and I break out in cold sweats and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, God, I know that feeling.
I have literally never experienced Kickstarter anxiety because the first Kickstarter I launched was when Kickstarter wasn't shit. And I say that with love in my heart. It was in 2009. It was when Kickstarter had just shown up. It was a brand new website. I launched my first Kickstarter the year Kickstarter launched. And by that point, I was like a veteran webcomic artist. I was, veteran artist alley, veteran figuring out tip jars and funding through PayPal and all that shit. And Kickstarter was just another thing I was willing to try. And if it didn't work out, it wasn't the end of the world. I tried a lot of things that hadn't worked out, and I just try something else. And I just keep trying things until I found something that worked. And so I just launched a project and it funded, and like, woohoo, isn't that neat? And from then on, I have just like launched, fund. And at this point, I'm up to 27 projects. Project 28 launches, I think it's 28, launches in November. And it's like, I say this with great pride. I've never had a Kickstarter not fund. I've never had a Kickstarter not fulfill. I've actually fulfilled more Kickstarters than I've launched because I have rescued one project. And it's something that is now fully incorporated into Iron Circus's sort of publishing approach, and I believe we are the first publisher to do that. And we have really sort of, I don't want to say automated, but we have it sort of planned down to the fine print whenever we launch a project. We have simplified and just sort of shed a lot of the accoutrements that go with a lot of people's projects. If you, for example, if there's a cartoonist who is 25 and they have a comic on Webtoon and it's fairly popular and they think they can pull off a book, there seems to be, to me, an impulse to demonstrate gratitude to a reading audience by sort of filling a Kickstarter with tat. Like, oh my God, we funded, so that means everyone gets a sticker sheet. Oh, okay, all right, we funded again. We funded the sticker sheet. That means everybody gets enamel pins. Oh my God, we funded again. That means everybody gets this, they get that, they get the other thing. And they just sort of like pile more and more and more stuff on the Kickstarter that they didn't necessarily plan for, but they're willing to do it because it's their fans and they love it, blah, blah, blah. If you notice a lot of Iron Circus Kickstarters, they pop out of the oven and they are just like, you want the book? Here's the fucking book. You want the book? Okay, you don't want the book? Okay, fine, get out of here. You know, it's like that's
on brand for us. It's the gangster approach.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we use it as a pre-order platform. Yeah. I think a lot of publishers do at this point. We use it as a pre-order platform because we are currently at the point where the sheer volume of Kickstarters we run, with very limited exceptions like Lackadaisy, the primary focus is getting the book funded, getting the book in hands, and we don't want to complicate that because at the end of the day, we're running like 5 or 6 years, so we need to like keep it as low hassle as possible, as few keychains as possible, as few sticker sheets as possible.
Yeah,
and that is
so
the approach. Not necessarily an approach that would work perfectly for an independent artist who has a dedicated fan base for them and them only, and might very well love tat, but yeah.
It's really easy to fall down that trap of like, let's just promise a bunch of merch, because merch is really exciting. It's exciting sounding, but it's like, okay, but how are you going to make that merch? How are you going to ship that merch? How are you going to, like, prototype the merch? Do you know how many meetings? You guys have any idea how many meetings we've had over the shot glasses alone?
Yeah, there's no idea. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't consider. Early on in Iron Circus, before we got our hands on a fulfillment warehouse that handles a lot of this stuff for us, we were shipping a lot of books media mail because it's very cheap to ship large books media mail. And I could ship like a 350-page 8x11 anthology for like $1.80, $2.50, something like that. But the thing about media mail, it has very strict rules. You can only ship media by media mail. Now, if I was one of these people running a Kickstarter for my book, and I had planned out to ship everything media mail, and that was baked into what the shipping costs, and I was just going feral with gratitude because my Kickstarter funded so quickly, and I decided everyone also gets a keychain. The minute that keychain drops into the box, that is no longer media mail, and you have to ship normal way, which may as much as triple your shipping costs. And yeah, going from $2 to $6 doesn't feel like the end of the world for one book, but if you have like 100 backers, 200 backers, 300 backers, and instead of paying, $1,000 for shipping, now suddenly you're paying $3,000. That is enough to sink a Kickstarter, and I have seen it.
I mean, that's like a thing that I learned early on, just seeing Kickstarters like rise and fall. Was there was this whole thing where it's like people would promise shirts, and then shirts would destroy the project. Shirts alone, it was all shipping. It's all shipping.
And it's worth noting every time you promise a new bit of tat, that's a whole new production cycle you're starting up.
Yes.
And if you are, again, a solo creator out there by yourself and you don't have, a bunch of people behind you helping you on everything, it can be really exhausting really fast if you have a Kickstarter that had a goal of $5,000 and you got funded to $15,000 and you're just so happy and you're just so thrilled. But now you have to source some t-shirts and source some keychains and source some of this and like, especially if you've never done that before, that can get really exhausting and scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one reason why we reached out to you, because we were like, we want to do this thing and it's so deeply involved just making the project that it would be a real struggle to do fulfillment in addition to actually making the cartoon.
Yeah.
So we need somebody else on board where that is their focus. Like, they have all the experience, and we reached out to you for that. And not everybody can reach out to Spike. We got lucky, that a lot of this was just like the fortune of finding you at Cala, and I wanted to get in touch with you even before that, but I didn't know how I would go about it. So I got very fortunate being able to just find you in person and chat with you. But guys, if you have a friend who has run a Kickstarter before, at the very least get advice from them.
Someone here has asked, how do you wait? Someone here has asked, how do you
Beth
organize
Purcell, has asked
out of a Kickstarter? Okay, I have, not to like advertise, but I have a little mini in my Iron Circus shop that's let's run a Kickstarter and not screw it up. I'm going to give you basically what's in there right now for free, which is the best place to start is to sort of do a self-assessment. And what that means is, okay, how much of this project that you want to kickstart, how much of it is finished? And do you have a fan base? Do you have anyone who, like, do you have 1,000 people that follow you on Twitter that think you're the bee's knees? Do you have like 50 people on Patreon that think you're amazing? How good are you personally on follow through? And like, be starkly honest with yourself. Like, is this a whim, or are you good at finishing things you say you're going to finish? Are you good at doing things you say you're going to do? Because that's super important. And how dedicated are you to seeing this through at the end of the day? That's like, those are things that's about you. Only you can answer questions like that. And if you don't have an audience, if you don't have anyone who has ever bought anything from you before, if you don't have a fan base that's used to giving you money, if you don't have a social media presence, that doesn't mean your Kickstarter won't fund. But I think it's important to go in with a realistic expectation, and maybe instead of trying to do an offset run of 5,000 copies of your comic for $10,000, let's say, maybe think smaller. Maybe think about a digital run of 50 copies or 100 copies for $500.
Also, if you're doing a Kickstarter for the first time ever, make it a project where if it totally fails, you're fine with that. Because I've run one Kickstarter prior to this, and I was trying to make frog pins, and it did not get funded. I actually had a friend go, "Hey, do you want me to just fund this for you?" And I was like, "No, because if you're the only funder, then it's not going to sell. I would rather it fail than for you to save me, and then I have a bunch of merch I can't sell." So I was just like, I'm fine with it. Just let it die. So be comfortable with failure, because you'll learn from it. So
the thing that I always try to tell people is, if you run a Kickstarter and it fails, again, I reiterate, I'm old. So I remember indie comics pre-Kickstarter, where if you had a book you wanted to publish and you really felt very strongly about it, there are dudes out there getting payday loans on their cars and shit to finance the print run.
I had a friend who sold blood to pay his artists.
You just had to hope it sold after that. Yeah. You had very little way to gauge the potential interest in something you were publishing. And I remember people would get offset runs of 1,000 copies, 2,000 copies, and it would sit in their basement for literal years because it turned out nobody wanted a copy, and they couldn't bring themselves to get the pulper to come and haul it all away until it literally started molding in their basement. like
By the way,
books,
friend who sold blood sold his own blood, not other people's blood. Just to clarify, yeah. But yeah, I've gotten my own comic printed. I had the first chapter of my comic printed, and I sold the entire first run. I was like, sweet, I'll order some more. I've sold like a handful of the next run. That was another thing. I was just like, well, okay then.
So when a Kickstarter fails to fund, I encourage people to think of it as a dodged bullet. Because not that long ago, instead of having a Kickstarter that didn't fund, and you go, aw, and you're like sad for a week, would have been 1,000 copies sitting in your basement like a huge-ass boondoggle, reminding you every day of all the money you sunk into this that you'll never see again.
Hey, I have merch to sell at conventions that I'm not going to run out of. Oh my goodness, we just got $100 from fucking Fetch, of course, who just says
wow,
E.
Thank you, Fetch.
Thanks, Fetch, for the letter E. So this Shop Talk's brought to you by the letter E. What does E stand for, guys?
Exactly.
What does E stand for to you, Ashley?
E.
What does E stand for you, Spike?
Excitement.
I just think of that Markiplier meme.
To me, it just means elephant. Just because the E always
Also,
means
we got
elephant.
another question about.
Yes, now let's focus on answering questions. We have questions in the document that Mike has so kindly.
Onyx the Revived says,
yeah.
"Does crowdfunding only work when you reward the donators with merch?" This has actually been a point of contention for some friends of mine. Like, I have a bunch of friends who have also run Kickstarters, and after years of observation and casual debate, we have decided you are best off running a Kickstarter where there is, and this is specifically for the comics category here that we're talking, you are best off running a Kickstarter that has some kind of tangible reward. We have seen Kickstarters where it's just basically fund a year of my webcomic succeed, and I've seen them succeed a lot, like tens of thousands of dollars succeed.
Wow.
Where there is no tangible reward. It's just pay me to make my webcomic for a year. But there is considerable risk in funding something like that we've seen play out, where if people fund this project in January and the person says, I will update every single week until the end of the year, there is a non-zero chance that they can flake, and the flake isn't really anything any person can do anything about.
Dude, you can flake and it's like just you got sick. I mean, it's like dedication and gumption and love of the project and money and everything means nothing when just basic life stuff gets in the way. You get sick. Your dog gets sick. It turns out you had to move, and so this week is off. Your house caught on fire. Huh, Ashley? Yeah? Yeah, Ashley had a very narrow dodge with her house nearly catching on fire.
If you look over my back fence, you can see the fire line, and it's really cool.
You got a nice fire break now, though. But unfortunately, you now have some other source of destruction inside of your house, so...
Yeah, it's called Michael Kovac.
Here's the thing, it's like a Kickstarter with
he unmuted,
Kickstarter with physical rewards can also flake. I see that all the time. But at the same time, I believe in my heart it is easier for something with non-tangible rewards to just sort of evaporate. And no one can really do anything about it than something with tangible rewards. And that is a belief system. That is not anything concrete. It is just from years of observation. If you want a webcomic funded, if you want to say, pay me to make this webcomic, I feel there is more impetus to follow through on your obligation with something like Patreon than a lump sum like Kickstarter. That is just opinion, but it's something based on observable situations.
I'll say also, with regards to the Kickstarter for Lackadaisy, we had a major advantage in that because we had Spike, and Spike specializes in producing books, we were able to make a tier. Like the tiers, it all included book in some format, which is a major incentive to donate, because then it's like you don't just get short, you get a book. And that book has been a lot of work, honestly. I mean, that is why Tracy right now is, she's actually hard at work. She's listening in on stuff, and she has been, like, the book that she's been assembling, I saw some pages, and like, this is goddamn gorgeous. Yeah, Tracy, yay!
Hey, Tracy, which made all of this possible.
Yay! Tracy is great, and like, her book layout skills are amazing, so I am looking forward to that.
Let us distract you, sorry.
Yes. But we have that advantage, and it's like, if you have some other advantage you can think of where it's like, you just happen to be a whiz at, like, I don't know, let's say you have a lot of experience with making keychains, you know, and you have that merch experience, you know exactly how much it's going to cost, you have your companies you rely on, you know all the ins and outs of that, you can take advantage of that. You know, don't invent something where like you have to build a whole new skill set just to fund things. It's like, if you already have that skill set, take advantage of it. That's another thing that you could add on to a tier without it being like a huge drain on everything, because then you know how much is this going to cost relative to the project. So it's like a value added thing. So that's one thing you could do with the Kickstarter. Just what have you already got? Use that. And just start small if you're new to this, because again, like, if you plan this massive project that definitely depends on $100,000 to make ends meet, just don't do that.
Oh my God.
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even have like a low end. This is what it takes to be funded. Like, our low end for funding was $85,000.
Yeah, and that was absolutely, like, Fable made it very clear when they were, like, you know, doing the budget stuff. They were like, okay, for $85,000, we could do the most sort of, like, protruding ribs, bare bone, clothed in rags, minimum possible Lackadaisy cartoon.
It would have been half as long, with way less time on everything, and probably largely puppet rigged. And it would have been, I feel like the argument of this has legs would have been a lot less strong as well, because if it only did 85,000, we got nowhere beyond that, then, you know, it would have been like, well, it's a nice treat for the fans, so let's just get something done. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but when you're paying a crew of people and you want to not pay them like pennies, you gotta, you know, like, you gotta think realistic, and you're not really getting 85,000, because Kickstarter takes their cut, and so do taxes. And then everybody else that you were in touch with for helping get this off its feet, like the publicist guy that we talked to, they need their cut too, and then the music people need their cut, and et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? You can't work for free either. I'm not working for free on this project. Now, I'm not making as much money as I would if I was working for a studio, but I am not working for free on this project, because I have bills I got to pay too, and I have money. I have to feed myself. I have to pay rent. I have bills. I have to understand that sometimes emergency expenditures happen every month, because I am 32 now, and I know that's just how the world works. So be realistic. But yeah, just keep that stuff in mind. Yeah.
There was there's a thing that I love referring back to, because when I was in college, Spike Lee came to speak to one of my classes, and Spike Lee was talking about, someone asked him a question about, like, okay, if I wanna get started in Hollywood as a screenwriter, what do you suggest I get started with? And he had an answer like that, like right away. And his answer was, I don't get these people who come to me with their very first script they've ever written, and they were like, the story has high-speed chases, high-speed multiple car chases along a freeway that end in a massive explosion with all these helicopter and crane shots, and the next thing you know, there's like this kung fu battle on an oil platform, and everyone falls into the ocean, and there are speedboats. And it's like, dude, for your first script, my first script was 3 people in a room. You need to understand where you are on the ladder, on the hierarchy of production.
That is It's like, to me, this project is a huge jump from other projects I've been on. And it's like, I've made my own small indie stuff. I made my own, like, shorts. Yeah. I've made shorts in college. I made shorts recently. I have worked for studios, etc., etc. And I still think this is an enormous jump for me. And I'm like, thank God it's been working out. And I've, like, learned some things over the years. But, like, it is scary. And so, especially if you're younger and you have zero experience, please be realistic. Like, Ashley right now has her pilot, like, her, like, just, like, a few minutes short that will be out eventually.
It's like a minute long, and like I was telling myself, like, okay, I've built up an audience, I've built up a group of people who really like what I do and would definitely be interested in seeing something original from me and would probably, financially help support that. And I thought to myself, like, all right, what's a baby step I could take, because I've never directed or run a crowdfunded project like this. Oh, I know, I'll make a 1-minute short and that'll be super easy. It'll take like a couple months.
Oh boy.
And I had not accounted for, I would have to build my entire infrastructure and how the entire team operates and find people for every single job. Like, even the most minuscule of steps to you, like, what might seem like a minuscule step to you in reality is probably about 1,000 times more difficult than you think it is. So if you're looking to create a project, like, take that first step that you think you want to make and, like, divide that by like 8 and then start there.
Here's a good argument. Here's an actual good argument for art school / film school, rather specifically. In film school, they start you off with those baby steps. They go, you're going to make a 30-second short, then you're going to do a 1-minute short, then you're going to do a couple minute short, then you're going to do a 5-minute short, then maybe you're allowed to do more. At least that was my experience at USC. I went to University of Southern California. I have a animation digital arts BA. Yeah, I know, flexing or whatever. But the point is that I had 4 years of being in a system which was designed to make you into that person who can run a production. And they started you off with the baby steps, where you were doing this stuff often on your own. Sometimes you could pull in, like, other students to help you out on stuff, but they didn't, like, say, here's a group project, there you go. I wish they had, but I know other schools currently do that, and I would think that, I have no idea what USC's program is like now, but I would think that they would hopefully start putting people on group projects now. But, I mean, I made several short films over the course of college that was super hard. Like, you think 30 seconds sounds like nothing? Not when it's animation. No. And we had access to resources like sound work. They had a whole sound department of people who were just also learning how to be sound people, and they were happy to work on your short without you paying a damn thing. You don't get that advantage outside of college. You do not. In fact, often inside of college, you might not even have that advantage. You want a voice actor? You're going to have to go out and find one. You want X, Y, and Z? You need to edit? You're the editor. Deal with it. You wear a lot of hats. You learn how to do all that. You make your bad crap. You learn how to make small things, and you go, yep, that goes in the portfolio until I'm sick of it. But all that is super value experience, because it's like, you think that 30 seconds ain't that much? Well, hon, I mean, think about how many frames that is to draw. Then also the backgrounds, then also the character design, and again the sound work. Oh my god, it can be the most gorgeous thing ever, but if the sound sounds like shit, it doesn't matter. It's like a beautiful, gorgeous gourmet meal, and then you take a bite, and it tastes like dog turds. Yeah. It's like, are you gonna keep eating? Maybe? But, oh man, oh god, when bad sound is in a cartoon, oh my god. So, yeah, you pay attention to that, because sound does like half the work for you. It is a medium of multimedia. It's not just a visual medium, and these things are important. And you know what? You're gonna have to pay people for that. So sometimes on small projects, you can get a friend to help you out. Sometimes for free. But honestly, I'd say that even if they're a friend and they're willing to help out for free, try to pay them, Because you know what? If you're paying them nothing, it's going to get backburnered ASAP once anything happens in their life. And if you pay them very, very little, it will also get backburnered because job comes first. And you know what? On Lackadaisy, we have people on crew who have full-time jobs and are students, and that stuff comes first over this. So you know what? How we deal with it? We're very flexible. You know, we understand that you can only work on this on weekends, or you only have a few hours a day to do this, and so we understand that it's going to take 3, 4, 5 times longer to do this shot for you than if I was, say, able to keep a bunch of people on staff and pay them the kind of rates that I'm familiar with inside of the industry studio realm.
Okay, and I need to talk a little shit right now, for real.
Go ahead,
okay. The thing, that is how it's going to work when you work for smaller companies, smaller organizations, and non-international conglomerate organizations, okay? Here's the thing I love mentioning at all times. There is a lot of talk I see on social media that is couched in creator rights language, but what it primarily does is demonstrate to me you have no idea how anything works. And what it seems to be is like, there's a whole thing of like animation paid me, comics paid me, writing paid me. There are like multiple hashtags. And I would see over and over again with the insight of a person who is a publisher, someone posting a deal they got, and I look at it like, oh, that's pretty good. And all the replies, like, to a person would be like 19-year-olds going, ew! It's like, okay. You are in for the worst surprise of your life when you graduate.
I would love to be able to pay people rates that allow them to be full-time on the project and do nothing but dedicate their lives to this. We can't afford that.
Here's the thing.
I would love to. We can't afford it.
When you are working for smaller companies, including Iron Circus, including the Lackadaisy production, including anything that's not Random House Scholastic, HarperCollins, etc., they literally cannot afford your exclusivity. That is not unique to us. That is simply the state of publishing, production, animation, etc. Small projects cannot afford exclusivity of your time, which is why when Iron Circus signs a book, I fully expect that book to be in production for 2 years, maybe 3. And what that means is they are going to be taking other jobs, doing other things while that book is in production. When you sign to HarperCollins for $50,000, HarperCollins expects you to fucking drop everything and work on that book. And that is why those books are done in 8 months. Yeah. Afford that. So that's not how it's done over here. However, what we do is we make it up on the back end. And while I won't go into details, because that's fucking rude, the split that Iron Circus offers on cover price is literally fucking unmatched. Because I know who I'm competing with. I'm competing with $50K up front from Random House. And I have to figure out how to make that work. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of variables I'm not going into here. But suffice to say, do not show up in publishing, comics publishing, or animation convinced that one size fits all, and first book you sell, you are now J.K. Rowling. That's not going to happen.
But also, whenever you're doing these little indie projects, expect to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah,
I am not just the director. I am a lot of other things on the project, and that's to save money so that more money can go to the crew. Because I don't get extra money for those hats.
And the thing that I always love to mention too, Stephen King had written 4 books, and he was still a college professor. The idea that you're going to sign 1 book, and next thing you know, you're going to be comfortably middle class or some shit like that. If that doesn't work for Stephen King, it sure as shit isn't going to work for you making a graphic novel when the graphic novel publishing scene is literally 1/10 the size of prose.
Basically, do not quit your day job. If you have
unless you work for Random House, who I'm sure can pony up a lot. You'll pay for it on the back end, but you'll get $50,000 now.
if you have a job which is paying comfortably and you want to do this kind of stuff, start stockpiling that money if you haven't already, and put that towards that future dream project. I know, Ashley, you know Kennedy Phillips?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's working on, he has like a podcast that he did for a while, and he's working on trying to turn that into an animated project. He stockpiled a shitload of money to get this made. You know, he stockpiled a shitload of the podcast money to get this made. He is working his ass off to show that project around to everybody he can and get feedback, and he's trying really hard to work with everybody he can to make those connections and everything so that, you know, his stuff can get off the ground. And also because he seems to genuinely like doing it, of course. But, like, that's sometimes the kind of gumption that you need to get into this. Is like, make your money how you can, and that can include working at the coffee shop. There's no shame in that.
Oh,
like,
God, no. Don't act like your day job is failing somehow.
Also, day job, fucking great writing material. If you were a writer and you work retail, you know what people relate to? Retail experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love those stories, so...
That one anime that was, like, super popular for a while, it wasn't, like, a full-length anime. I think it was, like, one of those interstitial types where it was, like, 3 minutes a bit. And it was about someone working in a bookshop. And
the skeleton one, yeah!
Oh, that's so good! I was like, this is, like, the story for Spike.
Americans coming into your bookshop and being super loud about how much they love pornography.
It was so good. Oh, I missed that anime.
It's so good. I hope it comes
American
back.
Women screaming, "We are Fujoshi! We love Yowie!" And
so good.
The bookseller was like, "Oh my fucking god, they're so loud."
Okay, so let's move on to more questions because we're gonna wrap in. How are you feeling, by the way, Spike? How's your endurance? Do you want to go?
I'm doing okay, a little peckish.
Just
my
for 45. Yeah. So
yeah.
do you want to go for 45 minutes? Is like our
45
minimum?
minutes.
Or if you're
hardcore
feeling like you got more,
and
yeah. Okay, so we'll roll through the questions then.
Yes.
Okay, so via Twitter, Citizen Zombie IEP. Hi, Citizen. Frequenter to streams. Says, I have a question about merchandising. What would you say is the best product to sell in a funding project or in general? T-shirts, art books, etc.?
Books. Here's the thing about books. Books are one size fit all. T-shirts are not. That is this massive complicating factor that is the main reason I stopped making T-shirts. There was an age in webcomics, maybe some of you folks would remember, where it's like the standard webcomic merch was T-shirt. And it was a huge pain in the ass, and I stopped on that for that reason. Books are great because, in my opinion, again, one size fits all, very, very easy to ship, very resilient against damage in shipping, easy to pile on a table. People can pick it up and go through it and just hand you money, and it's just really low hassle. You can print 1,000 at a time and store 1,000 under your bed. So easy. And if people are into your work as a cartoonist, we are kind of over that phase where we've all decided, if it's on the internet, I can go back and read it whenever, because all it takes is for the creator to make a webcomic and then come back 6 years later and not be able to stand looking at it, like cringe in horror at the sight of this pixel art, and then press one button and it's gone forever.
Oh boy, I had to come up with a hard rule when I started my comic of you're not allowed to delete it and you're not allowed to redo it, because I'd seen so many comics, including ones I'd worked on, where it was like, let's redo this, and oh my god. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta move forward.
No one believes that anymore, that they can read a webcomic and then say, I think I'll go back and see it 6 years later, and just expect it to be there. So people do buy books of webcomics. That was something that super confounded a lot of sort of old school cartoonists back in the day, where they're like, wait a minute, so someone could just go read all of the Less Than Epic Adventures of TJ and Amal, like all of it? I'm like, yeah. And they buy the book? Yeah.
You know what I want to do when I see a really good webcomic? I want to own the book, because I don't like reading things on the computer if I can help it. I love the print. And the print edition, also, they'll often like clean up stuff a little bit. That's the other thing. Because when you go back to that old work, sometimes it's like, oh shit, this got to be better. Right, Tracy? Right, Tracy? That old work? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Tracy's dying over here.
You are a cartoonist, and you are making comics and you have a fan base and you're thinking to yourself, what should I kickstart? I will always answer book. Kickstart a book.
And you know what? If you put aside enough money from that, like, then maybe, say, you want to do animation, then you could do, like, hey, I'll do a 1-minute little thing. Maybe it's just a trailer or whatever. Maybe it's just a way to get people, like, into the comic, in fact. Like, that could be all it is. But you have something. Like, if you're just really interested in animation, you would love to see stuff animated, but you know that this isn't going to last, maybe what you want to do is just put the money down for a trailer. Hey, that could work for you. You know, that's going to cost a lot less than 20 minutes of cats zooming around on cars and with fully colored backgrounds and 3D things and the goddamn trash boy who in his anyway the goddamn damn god and anyway I love it because I talk about it this way. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't mention it.
Was that love or Vietnam War flashbacks?
Can you have a flashback when you're currently in the middle of the Vietnam War? let me tell you something that I can't get over the goddamn drywall thing, because when he kicked in the wall, I was like, I am concerned about what I have unleashed onto the world now. I am concerned.
Dakota DeBear, thank you very much for your
yes,
donation.
thank you.
And asked the question, hey fellas, I gotta ask, with the comic industry seemingly in a very, very bad state, as an indie publisher, as far as I know, have you been able to keep afloat, and if so, how?
Actually, comics has never been in a better spot. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, comics is doing fucking incredible right now. Size of the industry is doubling every 5 to 6 years. There are millions and millions of comics being sold. The reason HarperCollins, Random House, and even Viz, amazingly enough, have launched graphic novel imprints, and in Viz's case, original English graphic novel imprints, is because the industry is doing so unbelievably well. It has a growth rate that is literally unrivaled by pretty much any other medium right now, because sales were artificially low for years. When people talk about comics doing badly, I am instantly sus, as the kids say, because what they usually mean is monthly periodicals sold in specialty shops, of which there are only 2,000 in existence, and that number is rapidly shrinking. So, for the sake of argument, I consider comics a medium. It is words with pictures in most cases, not all cases, that tells a story in most cases, not all cases. And if we are talking comics in the sense of that medium, comics is growing explosively. When I talk about how large companies, again, Coward is strong, they are risk averse. Random House, HarperCollins, Abrams, Viz, etc., don't leap into the fray if they think that ship is sinking. They are there because Scholastic established a market that in the last quarter has grown 42%. That growth rate does not exist in any other medium. And again, when I say it's because sales were artificially low, for literal decades following Frederick Wordham and the Comics Code Authority, which I will not get into here, but suffice to say, comics that could be sold were reduced to 2 genres, superheroes and funny animals, by which I mean like Bugs Bunny stuff. And for literal decades, superheroes were pretty much the only genre of comics that existed. And it was sold to a increasingly small sliver of the population as the decades passed. There is a really amazing story by a cartoonist named Paul Pope. And Paul Pope was sort of like a veteran guy. He'd been in comics for a while. And he wanted to recreate a comic that had been created by Jack Kirby. He wanted to resurrect it. And it was called Kamadi, the Last Boy on Earth. Feel free to Google it. It's quite a sight. Kamadi, the Last Boy on Earth. And Paul Pope really wanted to make a new version of this. And of course, since he did not own the rights to Kamade, The Last Boy on Earth, he had to go and talk to the people who did. And so that was Marvel, I believe. And he went to the head at Marvel and he said, hey, I want to remake this comic. And he described sort of the plot he wanted to do, and he described how many issues he wanted it to be, and blah, blah, blah. And the editor listened to him and went, okay. And Kamade's like 12, right? And Paul's like, yeah. The editor's like, so who do you picture this comic being for? And he said, well, Kamade's 12. I don't know, like 12-year-olds? And the editor at Marvel went, okay, but I don't make comics for 12-year-olds. I make comics for 35-year-olds.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And that has kind of been the attitude of Marvel, DC, and other monthly periodical publishers to the literal point of bankruptcy for decades. If you refuse to sell to millions of people,
leaving money on the table.
You know,
yeah, they want to sell only to themselves, basically.
Yeah.
They want to sell to an ideal version of themselves. The superhero monthly periodical has been either flat, sales-wise, or trending downwards since at least the 70s. And they dropped 11% this last quarter, which was very precipitous because it's usually flat these days. And meanwhile, the film
comics
division,
comics is dying, that's specifically what they mean. This very rarefied, esoteric subset of the industry, which, by the way, has not been financially viable for years, is sort of shuddering right now. I'm not going to say shuddering to a halt, but it's not in a good way, and quite frankly, that's nothing new. What is experiencing insane growth is the graphic novel industry. And a big part of that is, there's a lot to say about Tokyo Pop, but in the 90s, and a little bit afterwards, Tokyo Pop showed up and started putting very cheaply licensed collections of manga in Barnes & Noble. And that's how fucking the guy who was the head of Tokyo Pop, Stu Levy, ended up on the cover of fucking Wired, of all places. Suddenly, there were comics available, not in esoteric stores where people gave you the stink eye when you walked in if you didn't belong to their specific demographic, even odds, but in Barnes & Noble. And that's where it comes back to, like, the 14-year-old speed reading Fruits Basket because they can't afford to buy everything, you know? Suddenly there was Sailor Moon and Fruits Basket and Dragon Ball Z and all these other stories that were not being sold in comic shops, were available to everyone, and addressed demographics that mainstream comics in America just frankly didn't give a shit about. As demonstrated.
What interests me for animation is that in a similar way, anime has been like cleaning up in terms of like what are teenagers and adults watching in animation. And it's like, why is animation from my sphere not entering this field? It's like this insistence that, no, we can only do animation this one way, it can only be funded this one way, it has to be this, or that. It's so frustrating because it's like, anime is like a whole, like, just this entire regional animation medium has such a much broader approach. And not all of it's good. It doesn't have to be all entirely good, but it has a much broader approach than how it's treated here in our sphere. And I'm like, why are we not taking advantage of it? And sometimes there's baby steps into it. But oh my god, like, can you just, come on, guys, come on. So it's like, kind of dealing with that frustration over in art and in this medium as well. It's like, look, they clean up, manga cleaned up comics, like, and meanwhile, like, us in animation are looking at anime and be like, yeah, we could make that too, but please just give us the goddamn funding. We could make all kinds of things. And not everything has to be amazing, just let us fucking make it. Just let us make it.
And it's like, I'm actually, just for fun, let me go look up the news right now. Okay, yeah. Again, when people talk about comics is dying, all I can think about is, a month ago, the latest Dog Band got published. There's a guy named Dave Pilkey He does a series of graphic novels for children called Dogman. In a month, sold 500,000 copies of Dogman. A month. When Raina Tegelmeier sends a book to print now, the initial run, the run that says this should do for now, is between 5 and 8 million copies.
Jesus.
I can't even not swear at that number. I was like, 5 and 8,000? No, million. It's like, fucking hell. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh my goodness.
And it's
that would fund a lot, don't you think? Like, hey, how come that's not being made into a cartoon right now? Why is nobody picking that up? Look at all these comics coming out. So if we have graphic novels blowing up in our sphere of the world, why are we not turning that into animation? It's like, because animation is apparently just either for 8-year-olds or it's for the goddamn 18 to 35 demographic.
I actually kind of suspect that there's studios tripping over themselves to...
Yeah, frankly,
I hope so.
Yeah, Dave Pilkey is probably in a fucking, not to bring that person up again, is in a very J.K. Rowling position where he can probably just decide the pick of the litter. Like, he is in that place that so few creators ever actually get to, where he can set the terms.
Right, they come to you, you don't go to them when you're in that kind of, like, when you're selling those kind of numbers. So.
Yeah. And remember what I said before about Scholastic having a, like, incredibly unfair advantage? You look up, like, the top 10 best-selling graphic novels of 2019, I'm pretty sure 8 or 9 of them are Scholastic books. And 8 of them are, like, Dogman books. Dave Pilkey is a fucking force unto himself.
Hey, going back to Animorphs from forever ago, Animorphs is becoming a graphic novel, too. Like, did you hear that?
And because of the way sales are recorded, this isn't even taking into account manga, which is a whole different sale. It's just weird. That's just how it's done. I have no say in how it's done. That's just how it's done.
All right.
Manga and American-made graphic novels are 2 separate categories, and the sale numbers there are ridiculous. Like, when people talk about the big 2 these days, and they're talking about Marvel and DC, like, I have an internal chuckle, because the big 2 these days is Viz and Scholastic. They do brain-melting numbers, graphic novel sales. And again, this is an industry that, in my opinion, it was artificially low. There were millions of people who were simply not being sold to. And it is not a mature industry. It is not an industry that has come into its own yet. And that is why it's literally doubling sales every 5 to 10 years. No other genre in publishing is doing that.
We got $5 from Dakota the Bear that says, "Glad you dropped the truth bomb, fellas. Thanks, Iron Spike. I'm kind of new to this, so yeah." So
no, I totally get it. I totally get it. There's a lot of talk out there these days, like, oh, comics is dying, comics is dying. And when you dig a little deeper, the people who tend to be saying that are the people who have an extremely narrow definition of what a comic gets to be. But at the same time, comics is in a better place than it's literally ever been. Ever.
All right, we got more questions.
There's more diversity.
Yeah.
There's more access. And there's more incredibly talented people creating incredibly diverse and interesting work than there has ever been. And I am taking into account in golden age, silver age, whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like, just by random happenstance, you happen to be born into a time that is literally better to be making comics in North America than it has ever been. If you wanted to be a cartoonist and you are alive now, the planets have aligned for you. I do not think this level of growth in comics is sustainable, but I do not see this train stopping anytime soon.
No, why would
it cannot keep doubling in size.
It's
That's
affordable.
Literally impossible.
There's so many people that can do it. It's a much smaller crew that can do comics versus animation. It is a rare person who can do an entire production of an animation all on their own, and it takes a long time to do a short thing. Versus a comic in the same space of time, you can get a lot of chapters done. A lot of
cartoonists cry because it's like I don't know where this came from. Maybe it's just one of those old wives' tales, but from what I have heard, a common sense, air quotes, cartoonist thing is the average comics reader looks at a page for 8 seconds. And like,
I don't.
at the same time, I think animation has it even worse, because how long does 8 seconds of animation take you?
How much money does it cost you? I know how much money it costs us, and it's not, it's more than you think. So yeah, I mean, I love animation, I love this medium, but I say to people, it's like, if you want to start a project and you want to write and you want to make amazing art and that kind of thing, comics might be a better thing to start with at minimum.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know there's this thing where it's like, oh, don't do comics if all you want to do is animation, because you're just treating it as like a lesser medium or whatever. It's like, you know what, maybe I like both. And you might even find that you like comics better. Who knows?
Okay,
but honestly,
no,
if you have an idea and you want to get it out there, comics is totally viable. Go do it. You know, go do it. It's
so all sequential artwork, like, and the skills you're going to learn from running a comic will absolutely become useful for running animation later on.
Yeah, if you're really determined to do that, I mean, research both. Think about your comic in terms of, like, is this animatable? Because it turns out that, like, if you make something with the idea in mind that it's like, is this animatable? It makes it also easier to produce as a comic. Again, Tracy, there's a reason why the short looks a little different than the comic, and that's because we're realistic, and we don't want this to take 10 years. So we don't have Klaus money or technology, and we can't wait for it either. Okay, we have more questions, and we have to roll through them fairly quickly because we have about 15 minutes left.
But yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to explain all that, because it is something I hear, and it's, again, as a person on the publishing side of things, a person who is literally sat down twice a year by their distro for a slideshow about the state of the industry, the comics are dying crowd is profoundly clueless.
It's don't take everybody's opinions on Twitter as the literal truth. Like,
just because someone says it forcibly in a YouTube video does not make it true.
Yeah. So we got a question here from KD at KDDD57270212. This is via Twitter. Said, hi, I wanted to ask everyone, when do I know an idea project I want to do is a good one? I currently have one I really like and I want to work on it for the next couple of years. You don't. Just...
Oh, if only we all had that magic.
Wow, yeah, oh yeah, once I realized it was a good idea, I got started. No, it always feels like you'll sit there and you'll be like, oh, it's weird, it's cringy, nobody's gonna like this, etc., etc. You know, just do it. Fuck it.
Anything,
you know, like, it's 2020, just do the damn thing. You know, you might die tomorrow. You might as well start your dream project. And the more sincere and dedicated and specialized it's going to be, the more quote-unquote cringy it will be. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, the only thing that's actually cringy is shit that hurts people. That's it.
Anything sincerely and passionately made is at least a little cringe.
It's gotta be, you know.
Yeah, I gotta say, you can... If you're putting your heart into something and you're doing it with sincerity, like, you can pull off just about the most absurd scenario, most absurd premise, like, whatever is fine. You just gotta lean into it. And I was, like, saying in a stream yesterday, like, whenever I get down on myself and I'm thinking, wow, what am I even doing with my life? What is this stupid thing I've, like, spent years drawing? It's for cats with guns and hats and, like but then I think
goddamn cats with hats? Who could have think of this ridiculous thing?
Think of sports. Think of how fucking stupid sports are and how high in regard we hold them. Yes. Like, these are people paid millions of dollars to throw a ball well, or to jump on another guy, and it's like, it's so dumb, but it's done with sincerity. It's treated with seriousness. It's because the people who are involved in it treat it with seriousness and
they're seriously talented people, and that's really fun to experience.
Yeah.
To experience other people.
They're good at a very specific stupid thing, and they made a job out of it. So.
Tracy cannot contain herself. Yeah. Ashley's project that she's doing. Ashley's project that she's doing. At its core, Ashley's thing is so much about Ashley's specific interest and, like, that whole, like, the dedication to the things you love. Like, you explained to me the core concept. I was like, I'm super about this.
If you feel like your project is ridiculous or might not be a good idea, my project literally revolves around Sparkle Dog DeviantArt OCs I made when I was 12. Like,
can you go lower than that? I think not.
the notion that I operate under as for whether an idea is, like, good or not or worth pursuing is, do you love it? Yeah. Do you really want to pursue it? Because if the more you love it, generally the more people are going to respond in turn.
You will find other people who love it too. Unless you're a strange asshole like me, in which case it only, like, my weird zombie comic fantasy only appeals to me. And you know what? Maybe that's my audience, is me. For the pleasure of me, I make my weird shit. Because I have to have an outlet for this crazy somehow.
This might be a little, I don't know, a little art history-y for this discussion.
No, this is shop talk. There's no level of nerdery that is too low or high.
It's like two of my favorite artists in the world are men that labored in bizarre isolation on esoteric bullshit only they would ever fully understand. And they have produced some of the most bizarre, memorable, treasured, and moving art, in my opinion, in the history of modern art. And one of them was a guy named James Hampton. And I'm going to get this wrong, so let me do a quick Google. If you are ever in Washington, D.C., you can go to the Smithsonian American Art Museum and see what James Hampton made. And what he made is a thing called, and let me get this right, Throne of the Third Heaven of the Nation's Millennium General Assembly.
Wait, is this about that guy?
That sounds incredible.
Is this about that guy who made weird collages about a whole world that he just wholesale invented?
Oh, that is the second guy I'm going to talk about.
Okay, because that guy is awesome too.
Dude,
yeah.
I fucking love that dude's work.
What about the creepy guy who made like all those weird things?
Thrown out of literal garbage, out of cigarette foil wrappers and light bulbs and discarded furniture, and he put together one of the most amazing fucking things I've ever seen. And again, it is called the Throne of the Third Heaven of the Nation's Millennium General Assembly.
I love that name.
And the second guy is Henry Darger, or Darger, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Who is this, like, high-key, excellent YouTube material because he just created, like, decades of lore out of collages. And it's fascinatingly weird.
Henry Darger was not a good artist, but he traced a lot, and he photocopied and drew over the photocopies. He did what it took to make his super fucking crazy thing.
Henry Darger is the definition of outsider art.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's about this thing. It's about this, like this war between college professors and the Vivian girls who were so holy. They went to church like 5 times a day and were protected by supernatural monsters called Blengignominians. And it's about like the child slavery wars, and it's so fucking good and crazy, and it is incredibly sincere.
Spike, do you know if Down the Rabbit Hole has covered Henry Darger yet? Because
he absolutely has.
I gotta rewatch that again because it's like just learning about this guy. It's like, this is amazing. Like you would hope to be this level of productive crazy. It's like, if mental illness finally takes me over completely, please let me become Henry Darger. Holy crap. Like, then die happy. Yeah.
To a lesser degree, there are lots of other people out there like that. I think what Fable said before about if it speaks to you and it's super important to you and it's something you feel you want to explore thoroughly and completely and communicate it to other people, abandon your self-doubt. I'm not promising it'll be good or even coherent.
And it might not make you any money. No! But you know what? You know what?
People will be able to sense your sincerity and your belief in the worthiness of your own work. And that's intangible and difficult to quantify and really difficult to explain. But it's kind of like pornography. And like the Supreme Court...
And Spike knows her pornography.
You have tried.
You want to tell people what that first Kickstarter was for, Spike?
The first Kickstarter was for Porcraft, actually. But,
but what was the other? Oh, sorry, I didn't realize Porcraft was the first one. I thought the first one was was that porn anthology you did.
Yeah, Smut Peddler was like I think the second or third one, but
Yeah, actually, look into that one. I think you'll like that one.
Oh, I already fucking own Smut Peddler. You're preaching to the choir here.
The Supreme Court defines obscenity as you know it when you see it. And that is how I feel about sort of the sincerity of creative work. You know it when you see it. I can't sit here and write a dictionary, Merriam-Webster thing for you about sincerity in creative work, but you know it when you see it. And
okay, we got
that is
more
something
questions.
as creatives, we should all do our best to strive for. And I understand a lot of us, myself fucking included, make things that are not marketable and not, accessible and not coherent. But if we can put our all into something, I think people will recognize that. And no, we are not going to make the Throne of the Third Heaven. We are not going to fucking do that.
You probably shouldn't try to make the Throne of the Third Heaven. But make your own version of that kind of thing. I don't know what weird bullshit.
Try our best.
Just go and do it. I mean, at the very least, you'll give some amazing material to some YouTuber in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. So, okay, so we have more questions, and we really got to roll through them.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you here forever.
I got passionate about art. Pardon me.
If I can stick you here
How dare you?
to answer questions about art passion, I will. Okay, so, we got an animation question. I'm going to skip to this one. So is adult and mature one and the same in animation? No. I mean, those, honestly, that terminology is really hazy. It's like adult and mature. It's like, are you talking pornography, or are you just talking about topics you wouldn't typically put in front of an 8-year-old? Like, what is mature? What is adult?
When I hear adult and mature, I think of, like, Jan Spankmeyer. I think his work is very adult.
Can you explain who that is? Because that went over my head, and I don't know who.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Jan Spankmeyer is a. Let me see if I can spell his name right. Oh, that doesn't exist in English.
Yeah, you might want to break this one down.
Yeah, he is a Czech animator, and the one I can recommend that you can probably find is Alice. It's an Alice in Wonderland movie he made. In 1988, but he does a lot of stop motion stuff. He also did a version of Faust in stop motion, and he's Czech, and there's a certain flavor to to sort of Eastern European animation that his stuff has in spades. Same with Brothers Quay. They're more animators. And I would never show this to a child, but not because it's dirty, but because I sincerely doubt a child will be able to appreciate, the Brothers Quay or Jan Spankmeyer.
Yeah, I consider adult, mature, whatever you want to call that, to be anything that would fly over a kid's head. And that can be something that involves sexual stuff. That can be stuff that involves adult topics, like we're talking about taxes. This could be existential conversations. Like, I don't think that an 8-year-old is going to be that engaged with BoJack Horseman. But an 18 to 60-year-old will relate a hell of a lot to it. And in different ways over the course of their lives. So, it's like, does it speak to the issues that you face when you're an adult in a way that doesn't presume your immaturity?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can watch Steven Universe and I can appreciate it, and it does have a few adult topics, but it's still speaking to a younger audience than me. It's speaking in a way that is meant to be digestible for people who are, like, between 6 and 12, basically. And there's no, like, hard line with these things. Kind of like, YA can appeal to adults, too, and a lot of children's media appeals to adults, like, i.e. See My Little Pony. That's definitely not meant for adults, but... Oh boy. But mature cartoons would be anything to me. My personal definition is who is the target audience, and is that target audience at least above the age of 16? Because I think at about 16 is when you start becoming more self-aware of things, you become more aware of the world, you start to take those first baby steps into adulthood, and, like, definitely something that's aimed at least, 20-somethings is going to be an adult. And, like, but, like, a 12-year-old's not going to relate to conversations about struggling with rent.
Yeah.
They're not going to relate to conversations about struggling with multiple relationships that you've had with people, and like, even if you don't talk about sex specifically, it's still part of an adult conversation quite often, because that's just common experience for a lot of people. Conversations about dealing with crappy neighbors that aren't just that one mean guy who stole my basketball. It's like, no, there's that neighbor down the street who, like, runs the HOA, and, like, he's a nightmare, and, like, that hassle. Again, that's probably going to go over kids' heads. Sometimes you'll find aspects of that in children's media. Like, you can watch old Rugrats, and they'll have the adults having adult conversations. But it's still all really meant for kids, you know. They just have, like, some side stuff that's just, like, a bone for adults to enjoy, too. And also because the writers have to write something, maybe, so.
I actually have a reference that's less, like, irritatingly art school, shut up, Spike, obscure. Now, that sort of, like, ties into that, the difference between sort of adult and mature, and, like, the audience being the main consideration, like Fable was saying. Let's see if I can talk about him without choking up. Chances are no. If you've seen his work, you probably understand why. There is a Japanese director named Satoshi Kon. And
no.
I'm about to...
Don't make me cry.
No! Fuck! I can feel the tears welling now. He made a series in 2004 I strongly suggest you watch, called Paranoia Agent. I watched it when I was much younger, obviously 16 years younger than I am now. And at the time, I thought it was, you know, good. But as I got older, Paranoia Agent has spoken to me more and more and more, because without ruining it, at its heart, it's about a desire to escape your responsibilities in a blameless way. Because as I've gotten older, more responsibilities have piled on top of me. I literally don't get weekends. I work from when I wake up to when I go to bed. There is just absolutely no break for me. And quite frankly, I have a lot of people relying on me to stay on top of stuff. And as that has become my life, Paranoia Agent has spoken to me more and more and more, in the sense of, God, I fucking wish that, like, I'd be crossing the street and I'd be crossing with the light, so I'd be completely in the right. And then suddenly, like, a fucking van would come out of nowhere and just fucking cream me. Not kill me, not hurt me in a permanent way, not fuck up my brain, but just, like, put me in the hospital for a month so no one could expect anything of me at all. Like, you reach a certain point when you have a lot of shit going on where that sounds amazing. And 16 years ago, I did not comprehend that on a visceral level.
Yes.
Now I do.
That mature stuff, it's like that kind of thing where it's like the older you get, the more you get it. And that to anybody who's like a teenager listening to this, I know that probably sounds really stupid. It's like, oh yeah, haha, I've heard that lots of times. I mean, we're just being honest here. As you get older and you experience more of the world, certain things just hit different. Think about how differently zombie things hit now with 2020 and the plague going around. Like, how things hit different now, that's the kind of thing. It's like experiences pile up and certain things just matter more. You know,
and it's kind of like when you were a kid and you'd be watching, like, Mystery Science Theater, and just the jokes would be like, over your head, and you'd be like, huh. And then you go and you live 10 more years, and you come back and you watch it, and you go, oh, you know, suddenly it's funny.
Yeah.
Because you actually get the jokes.
There's so many things I've watched where I'm like, this is boring, and then I watch it later, I'm like, this is fucking amazing. Like, I was just watching Shaun of the Dead, and I hadn't seen it in, like, I don't know, a decade. And then I, like, rewatch it with a bunch of people. I'm like, I super get this movie now. And, like, before, it's like, yeah, that's a fun film. It has some funny moments. But now it's like, no, now I really understand what it's about. And it's, like, just the world around you feeling dead, and then everything collapses.
Yeah.
You know, having your competency questioned, and maybe people were right, and you really needed, like, that push to actually step up to the plate, and then being disappointed regardless. You know, all this stuff. It's like, it's interesting. Also, just like, as my skill in filmmaking has increased, my appreciation for the art form. So now I can watch a lot of films and be like, oh wow, I really love the editing here, and like, oh, the staging's really pretty. Hey, check out that lighting. And the stuff I wouldn't have noticed, like, 10 years ago. Yeah. Even with the experience I had then. You know, because 10 years ago, I was just popping out of college, you know, and I had, you know, more knowledge than the average person. But still, I've gained a lot of knowledge since then. And so
if I can be a Poindexter for, like, 3 seconds, very customary for... I know, right?
Yeah.
It's very customary in Japan for people who make manga and anime to take aliases when they're working. And Satoshi Kon was not his birth name, it was his alias. But what his name actually means is basically history of now.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. I fucking love him so much. Oh my god.
Alright, we got a few more questions if we can roll through these really quick. So, Pie the Hat Guy asks, where would be a good place to look for writing editors for graphic novels other than Iron Circus, of course, but they're certainly on my list. And also, what would be a good place for artistic portfolio critique? So there's two questions, but I figured we'd try to go over those really quick. Editors, I mean, at the very least, show your work to your friends and get their feedback. You know, if they're honest with you, they'll point out the obvious, at least.
Yeah, I think it's important to share your work. I understand, like, the impulse to, like, you know, clutch it to your breast and hiss and go, no, not till it's perfect.
It's never going to be perfect. Drop that idea.
It's never going to be perfect at all. And I have a friend who said something along the lines of, like, you know, imperfect and on paper where everyone can see it will beat out perfect and in your head every time.
Yep.
And it's important to show it around. Like, there are so many people that are, like, waiting until they're air quotes good enough to do whatever, and it's all like, cool, you'll be waiting forever. Mm-hmm. If you want editorial feedback, I think I have a policy of I don't offer editorial feedback on anything that is not something I'm going to publish, therefore I have a literal financial interest in it succeeding, or unless someone literally comes to me and directly asks, can you read this and give me your editorial opinion? And for the record, please don't do that. I have enough to do.
Spike is so busy that I have to text message Spike sometimes for meetings, and we are high priority for Spike. So please don't pester Spike for random editing advice.
My inbox is a hellscape, but
yeah.
I would show it to friends is the best way to start off, and I would worry about, like, getting professional editorial oversight a little farther down the line.
Yeah. Like, you can find people who do editing. Like, I do have the fortune of my partner is currently working on a master's so that he can be...
Ooh, fancy.
He's working on a master's so that he can be hired by companies who are looking specifically for editors with a master's degree, and he has editing experience and everything. But yeah, if you have, if you know people with some writing experience, who could take a look at what you got and just shop it around, get different eyeballs on it, that's good. Start getting wise to how to edit yourself. And also, you can pay people to do this as well. I don't specifically know where you can go to find a whole stable of editors, but if I were to suggest anything, look on Twitter for people who are editors and see who they're talking to, what they're talking about, and maybe get in touch with them if you can. Because I bet they don't have as many, people flooding their DMs as, say, Ashley.
Nobody ever DMs me ever, huh?
Yeah, I hope that bitch is locked down, I hope.
No, I'm an idiot. I've left my DMs open.
Don't tell them that, Ashley!
Oh, wait, shit!
No! Ashley is not an editor, please don't. Also, where is a good place for artistic portfolio critiques? There are so many. It depends on what you want to do. Just art portfolio is really broad, but depending on the kind of art that you are looking to do, just go find other artists who are doing that. A lot of them will give their opinion on, like, portfolio stuff, and particularly if someone talks about how they've done recruiting and that kind of thing, sometimes they're freely giving out advice. Like, there's so many artists who are happy to tell you everything they know about putting together a portfolio, and some of their advice is going to be kind of contradictory, but that's because what they're explaining is how the company that they worked for or currently work for or project they're on, what they're looking for in a portfolio, and every project and company has, like, a different approach, and that's really frustrating because, you just want to make the one portfolio that's for everybody. But if you have a goal in mind of, I want to work for X company, it's probably a good idea to figure out what kind of portfolios they've accepted before, and then see what you can maybe do that kind of matches a bit of that, so that you know what they're, not in terms of like copying somebody's work wholesale, but it's like, okay, you want to be a character designer. Do you know what is involved in being a character designer? Turnarounds, lip sync, various versions of characters, color palettes, like exploration. Put that in your portfolio. You know, the kind of thing you'd be expected to do on the job is what you want to put in your portfolio. If you're talking about, like, putting together a proposal for a comic to send to a publisher, it's going to be a lot different. So you probably should send it to a publisher that would actually be interested in your work, as far as you know. If you're not sure if they'd be interested in your work, I guess send it to them anyway, but pay attention to other pitches maybe that they have shared or talked about that you could learn something from. So
the more specific you can be with your aspirations, the better off you're going to be. Like, a thing I hear a lot is people like, oh man, I want to make comics. And my response is always like, okay, what does that mean? When you say, I want to make comics, because that's very broad. When you say that, do you mean, I want to be an independent creator supported directly by my fans through crowdfunding? Do you mean, I want to pencil Spider-Man? Do you mean, I want to make children's books for Random House? Because these are all completely different approaches.
They're totally different.
I want to be the king of Webtoon is completely different from I want to be the king of mini comics.
And what's more is your project will be tailored to that kind of thing. So, like, the weirder you go, the rougher the path. I'm just going to let you know.
Exactly.
It's just going to be. So, a lot of stuff won't pay dividends for many years, if ever at all.
This is not quick. Nothing about this is quick. The creative arts have an incredibly high washout rate, and you are going to spend... This isn't universal. Some people roll a natural 20, and they're Rob Liefeld, and they're making $1 million when they're 19. But
you're not going to be Rob Liefeld. Just don't count on that. Assume it's not going to happen.
Chances are excellent. That's not going to be you. And you are going to spend the first 5 to 10 years, without exaggeration, 5 to 10 years of your career, basically just convincing people you're here to stay. You're serious about this. Because those years will be spent with people basically not taking you seriously, and it's going to hurt your soul, and it's going to hurt your heart and your self-esteem to go to a convention and have people just fucking walk right by like they don't even see you, or send out query letters to agents to represent you to try and get a publishing deal, and them not even reply to your email. You know, it's going to be discouraging, and there is no antidote. I am sorry. That's just kind of how it is.
The only way to deal with it is to find your community of people where you can talk about these things with, because that will help you sustain. Find people to talk to who you share things in common with, who are your peers. Because your peers are going to help you more than anybody.
Make friends.
Yes,
make friends.
Don't be that asshole who has made their career attacking other people. You know, be more about, like, supporting other people and finding people to champion, and, like, you know, be generous with folks, like, as much as you can. And I know you can't always do that monetarily. Hey, I'm poor too. But you know what? You can talk people up and talk about how much you love folks' work, and sometimes it pays off. But
tweets are free.
Tweets are free. It's true. You know, like, you know what helps with social media and stuff? You're like, you love that one artist, and you're like, why aren't they getting enough more followers? Engagement. Start retweeting stuff. Start quoting their stuff. Start replaying under their stuff. You know, use their hashtags. If you want them to be more seen, then use the tools of that medium to make them more seen. They're not just going to magically be known by everybody.
Yeah, we do not live in a meritocracy at all.
You can have the best comic of all time, and if nobody reads it, nobody reads it. If you can have, like, 5 hyper-dedicated fans, and if they don't tell anybody about what they're reading, nobody else is going to know about it other than those 5 hyper-dedicated fans. So if you love a specific artist, and you really love what they do, please champion them, talk about them online, and no, you're not going to make them squirm or be upset because you were praising them. Yes, I know we make a big deal sometimes out of, like, oh no, I received a compliment, but you know what? Fuck that. I can get used to receiving compliments, and everybody else should probably start talking up the people they love, because more love Spread that around, because god damn it, I'm so sick of the cynicism. I'm so sick of it. Let's just be nicer to each other. I don't mean that in a vague way. I mean literally, like, you know, champion the people who you think deserve the attention rather than just being upset about people you don't like getting the attention. Make noise for the people you love. It'll go further, trust me. And they will notice.
Not to sound like completely paranoid and shit like that, but we are living in a world where mainstream entertainment is slowly becoming consolidated under a scant handful of international conglomerates. And as a result, there are less risks being taken all the time. There's fewer expression in the work that is produced and marketed, and everything is sort of starting to fade out into sort of the same shade and the same flavor of entertainment. And I have to admit, it kind of horrifies me when I see people super excited to watch 5 movies from the exact same company over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. If you have tastes that deviate from the mainstream and are not being serviced by the mainstream, it is vitally important you support the creators of the esoteric, non-mainstream, non-elevated work that you enjoy now more than ever.
Your dollar goes further for indie than any dollar does going to Disney. You put your dollars towards indie if you care about the things that people do. If you are ever like upset about why this company or that company doesn't make this X, Y, and Z, then don't worry about like supporting them. What you need to worry about is supporting like the small indie artists who are making those weird little things. Go find that. You know, you will
Disney
find something
will be
for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know,
it will be very okay.
The work that you love, that literally you have like 1 or 2 suppliers for, who are making like the weird offbeat shit you super enjoy, those people, if you do not support them, will go away.
Yes.
It happens.
It's a thin margin. Nox Kitsune says right now, I recommend buying Fable food. They respond well to it. That's actually true. If you are, if you see a guy and he's streaming, you love what he's doing, or they are doing, or she's doing, whatever, and they have treat stream up, believe me, like getting food delivered to me means that's money I don't have to spend on myself for food, and it means that I am well fed and I can keep working and I don't have to like go hungry to keep the stream going, which gradually becomes discouraging no matter how, you know, dedicated I am to everything, because you live on thin margins as artists, especially indie artists. There's a rare indie artist who's independently wealthy. Yeah.
Even if you are poor, cheerleading costs nothing. Every time they have a live stream, every time they have a Kickstarter, every time you remember they have a Patreon, every piece of art they tweet, retweet it. Repost it, reblog it, do something. That shit's free.
It is the minimum, and it goes really far because it gets more eyeballs on you, and that means that the number of people who are willing to support you financially means a lot. And you know what, like, the $1, $5, whatever, you know, that you can only afford to give to an animator or artist or comic artist or whoever on Patreon, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't donate. It's like, no, those mean more. During the Lackadaisy Kickstarter, we had something like 3 or 4 times somebody tried to drop $10,000 and it disappeared. You know who the majority of donations came from? People donating $10, $20, $40. It wasn't the one-time $10,000. If we got every single $10,000 slot filled, the project would not have been funded if that was it. What matters more is
great,
those small
but retweets
numbers.
are better.
Yes, very much. Faves don't make much. They're sort of relatively empty.
You're alive.
Yeah. It's like it helps in a kind of a non-obvious way, I guess. But what matters on social media is what they call engagement, which is when you actually respond to something with like comments or tweets. Or you want to know why there's this quote retweet going on in Twitter? Because Twitter is trying to increase engagement on their platform to make it more palatable to advertisers. Because, like, if they can encourage you to quote retweet, that accounts for more engagement, which demonstrates that, oh, this tweet that an advertiser put out in particular, because they pay the big money for, like, their promoted tweets, they know that it went through, and so money well spent on advertising dollars. So, I mean, if you're worried about, like, oh, quote retweets are going to take something away from artists. I honestly think that maybe we need to rethink that one. You know, because it's like, I just want eyeballs on my stuff, man. I want eyeballs on my stuff and engagement where I can, because that's what increases my audience numbers, that increases my followers, and then I have more chance to make funds, like, independently. And then, if you want those t-shirts and keychains and, I don't know, more shot glasses, we're more likely to make that kind of thing because we know there's a real audience for that. Because you can't just hope that an audience will come to you. It's like they need to actually be there, and they need to be engaging with stuff. So it does matter, and it's a rough road, but there is a road nowadays, and that didn't used to exist. So, I mean, that's one reason I'm hoping Shop Talk can be useful for people. It's like, we're talking about the road.
Yeah.
And it's a
there.
changing road, but we really want to see more people. It's like, what is it? Rising tide raises all ships. You know? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why when people have asked me my opinion on the Keanu Reeves comic Kickstarter, and it's like, I hope you don't expect me to be mad, because I'm perfectly happy about that.
It means it's a viable platform. I mean, it just proves your business model right. Most people...
But again, it's very much rising tide raises all ships. And if you dig in the Kickstarter site, you can find things they've written about this, where people who, like, when Shenmue 3 basically broke the site, you know? When stuff like that happens, what is happening is thousands, literal thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of people are registering Kickstarter accounts for the first time. And then they back the project they registered the account to back. And then they go on to back other projects. Those are people who had not thought of using Kickstarter until this point. That Keanu Reeves Kickstarter had like 14,000 backers. And if we're lucky, maybe half of those people are people who are not only registering their very first Kickstarter accounts, but now they're used to backing stuff in the comics category.
You know what also
that is good for everyone.
If you are concerned that your work is like, oh, it's too similar to this other thing which got mega popular, so I should just give up. It's like, no, you fool. It means people want that. Stick around. They'll end up finding your thing and they'll like it too. Otherwise, do you think isekai would be like as explosive a category in anime? Do you know how many derivative isekai there are? Yeah, people eat that shit up. So just make your goddamn thing. Don't worry so much about how derivative it is. Just make something sincere. You know,
make your passionate, strange thing.
Yeah. There are 3 more questions, Spike, if you have energy to get through them.
I do. Let's do these 3 and then call it a night.
Alright, so ArcKing01 asks, any particular mutual connections you guys found with each other that took you by surprise? I find those kind of small world events really fun. Well, there was Kala. that
Kala,
got you and me. Yeah. That is an interesting environment.
Yeah. I thought for sure I was gonna fucking have the worst time at Kala, because
explain Kala to the folks, because they don't know, most of them. Comic
Arts LA is a itsy bitsy con. Itsy bitsy. It takes place on like a basketball court.
It's in a gymnasium in Los Angeles. Yeah. It's not in a huge convention center at all.
I decided I was going to go predominantly because you're talking to a morbid bitch here. LA has some really interesting graveyards. And I really wanted to go and check out the graveyards in LA, and I wanted to do it in
here. We gotta look at graveyards together. Tracy, when you get on here, we gotta do graveyards. Ashley,
I wanted to go in such a way where I could write off the trip as a business trip. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna do Kala, and then I'm gonna stay an extra day, and I'm gonna go look at some graves. And I was shipping books there to sell, and since it was such a small con, I was like, whatever, I'll ship a small amount, and I did. And then we got this note from UPS that was like, hi, we're totally incompetent, and for some reason we've decided to ship all of your boxes back to you. Like, okay, the con is like a week away, so now we have to sort of speed ship everything. We have to send it express, which we're not happy about because it costs 3 times what it would normally cost to send it now. Oof. And I can't go and not have anything to sell. That's stupid. No. So we're going to have to do this. We have no choice. And then UPS sent us another thing that was like, oh, hey, that stuff we said we were shipping back to you, yeah, we said not to do that. So now you have twice as many books as you anticipated having. And so when I was getting on the plane to go to this show, I was in the worst mood because I was picturing this con where I was going to have 15 boxes that I had to sit there and figure out how I was going to ship back when it was all over. Because how many could I possibly sell at Kala? It was so teeny tiny, itsy bitsy. You know, I'm going to sell maybe 50 books, and what am I going to do with the rest of this crap? How annoying! You know, I perfectly engineered this so I wouldn't have this massive overflow of books that I would have to figure out how to ship home later, and UPS ruined it. Great. It turned out to be the best con of the year. I sold all the books. I met Fable. We sort of began talking about the Lackadaisy thing.
I came up to you and I was like, "Did you know that Tracy Butler is going to be a free agent?" And you were like, "Did a backflip." Yeah. And then I said, "Did you know also that we're going to start? We want to do a Kickstarter for an animation thing?" And then I think you, if you could have, would have done a backflip to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen someone's eyes get that big.
It was one of those where there are two things that I have wanted to. Multimedia company, blah. There are two things I've wanted Iron Circus to expand into. One of them is games, and the other one is animation. And I just didn't know how to make that happen. Like, the door was open, but I had no idea how to tell people the door was open. I had no idea who to approach. I had no idea what to do. Because all of my effort for the past 20 years has been in comics. I didn't have any access to the animation world or the game-making world. And then Fable comes up to my table and it's like, "Hey, what's up?" And next thing you know, it's like, "Holy shit, awesome!"
I just have had a foot in kind of sort of the scrum of the comics world at the same time as making animation my career, and apparently that's relatively unusual. It's like, I know a few people have done it, like Kelly Turnbull, one of my good friends, also has a significant foot in both, and. Oh man, she does great stuff, and I definitely aspire to be quite that strong. But yeah, it's like, you know what, you'd be surprised what connections that you've made, like the friendships you've made over time, like what that can result in, because I was pretty sure nobody knew who the fuck I was, and then Tracy Butler like messaged me out of the blue and just said, "Oh, yeah, you know, I saw you were open for, like, animation commissions and that kind of thing. Would you be interested in doing a pitch for Lackadaisy?" And I was like, "The fuck is this email? Is this a trick?" Because I just assumed that nobody gave a damn, but it turns out somebody did give a damn about what I had done, and that it was worth, like, doing my passion project. And, you know, I'm thirsty to get back to my work. It's Halloween, and I want to do my zombie comic, but I have priorities, so...
Without going into detail, without fucking, you know, letting people into my business, nature of the internet, and this is hardly just me. This is a life lesson for everyone who is listening and who maybe anticipates working in entertainment or already does. You have no idea who knows you're alive.
You do not.
And you could be in for some very weird experiences if you start talking to someone who maybe you admire, or somebody who holds a position of power or leadership at an organization you would like to interface with, and you introduce yourself and they're just like, "Oh, I know who you are." So I urge you, I understand the nature of social media, but I urge you not to be a dumb shit in public.
Look, there is a grace period when you're an art student where every professional artist goes, "Yep," and so they'll be kind of understanding, but understand that, like, at some point you're going to leave college, and then how are you going to talk to people? Who are your peers that you're talking to? Because if you made your public image all about alienating people, it's not going to help you. It won't help you. I'll just say that.
I am aware of I have a friend who that was actually him. He works in comics, and for a while his whole thing was he was sassy, standoffish, judgmentally. You know, that was like his deal. And he actually talked to me about an older comics writer who will remain nameless, who at a convention, when my friend was like 2 or 3 years out of school and was really sort of playing up this image, you know, the older comics writer who took him aside and was like, "You need to fucking knock it off right now."
Oh my god.
And it was just like this real sort of like a figurative smack in the back of the head. Where it's like,
this is what I'm saying. Cringe, real cringe is when you hurt people.
Yeah,
That's
and you're not
actually...
aware of it. Mm-hmm. You're not. Again, back to Dunning-Kruger. He wasn't aware of it. And the older comics writer is like, you think this is cute and you think this is going to get you a name. It's not. Everyone fucking hates what you're doing. You're a good writer. Yeah. I have read what you write.
Yes.
You don't need to do this.
I think part of that idea is that we see these like asshole artist types and we think, I want to be like that. It's like, A, you don't know their path in life. And then B, don't think you can be them. And it's like... It's like there's a certain amount of leeway that is given because you're an artist and everybody be kind of a little bit weird. Boy, do I know. I'm fucking out there, man. But I don't try to be an asshole. Like I just unfortunately have a natural tone of voice that tends towards that direction, to which I apologize. I know I can sound a certain way, but trust me, everything is said with a lot of sincerity, and if I really don't like something, I'm probably not talking about it. But
I think a lot of people are sort of under the impression that, like, oh, it's drama, like the drama happens on the internet, and we are seeing all of it. Here's the deal. If there is a person who gains a certain reputation in a lot of professional circles, and again, this is hardly unique to comics, animation, whatever, a lot of times there will be no big drama explosion for you to get the lawn chairs and popcorn and opera glasses out and watch go down live on Twitter. A lot of times what happens is someone goes, oh, hey, I'm going to work with Righty McWriterson. What do you know about them? And the person just goes, ooh, yeah. And suddenly Righty McWriterson has a super hard time getting work. And Righty McWriterson stops getting invited places and stops getting hired. And that is not, there is no, massive flame out on Twitter. It's just the community as a whole becomes aware of who Righty McWriterson is as a person. Work and attention is not by any sort of cabal in a back room around a big table where everyone rubs their hands together.
There's no universal blacklist like that. There's no universal blacklist that gets passed around by everybody. That's not how it works.
I think that's a fantasy that a lot of people like. Yeah. The whole,
I wish it was, because then I would just look at the Google update for the day and look at the Google Docs who's on the blacklist today? Okay, I know that person's a rapist. I guess I won't talk to them. Exactly. That's not how it works.
And there's just people where you hear, okay, perfect example. I'm a publisher, and there are artists and writers who have reputations as massive fucking divas. And when I am told this in confidence by other publishers or other creators or other whatevers, I'm just like, duly noted. I know this person that I'm talking to. I trust their judgment. And I have enough to fucking deal with. So if so-and-so submits a story to me, I'm not going to write them and go, I heard you're a huge diva. I'm going to just go, we considered it and no thank you.
I have experienced people coming to me who made it their job online to harass friends of mine to the point where they were driven off the internet. And they came to me looking for work, and I was like, no thank you. I didn't say it to them. But it's like, you know what? I remember that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember that stuff. And like I said, it's like, I will be forgiving to a degree of people who are like, they were 16 and stupid. It's like, I get it. But I don't exactly want to work with the person who I know led a harassment and bullying campaign against several close friends of mine. I'm probably not interested in working with someone like that because I have no idea, what they're going to do to me in the future. I have no idea if they, hopefully they're not like that anymore. I certainly hope not. I really don't want anybody to stay that way, and I would love to just be like, hey, I was a different person then, and I'm not like that anymore. Just put it to bed. But you know what? If you were that person, then it's probably going to take a few more years before people go, all right, let's, give it some time. And then you build a new reputation being someone different, and people hear about that instead. So let's say you were that dick when you were a kid. Just maintain, keep being better than that. and people are pretty forgiving overall. But it just don't be the same asshole you were when you were 16, when you're 25.
If we're all going to be judged by who we were when we were 16, we're all fucked.
Oh my god, there's some things I look back on, I'm like, I am glad that I was not very on the internet, and other things I was on the internet, and I had a viral video once, and I said something in it, and I was like, I'm gonna unlist this video now. Because I was a stupid fuck.
I don't trust anybody who says they weren't stupid at 16. Like, please, your brain was still smooth back then.
Are you kidding me? It's like, that's when it starts to form the wrinkles.
Yeah.
and you know what? That's great material. You're a writer, and you want to look back on the fucked up shit you did when you were 16. There's some material there. I feel like I've gotten better as a writer as I get older, because, like, I have much more material now. It's great. You know what's great about being an artist is that you have an excuse to go out and put yourself in weird situations. And it's like, it's all right, everybody. I'm an artist. And they're like, that person's extremely weird. Yeah. I was talking about with someone, I forget if it was like Tracy or you, Ashley, where I was like, yeah, you know, at some point I want to make my way to the Playboy Mansion and just, like, go see what other weird orgy that got going on with a sketchbook in hand. And you know what? It's justified because, hey, I'm an artist. Gotta be there.
I'm an artist.
Yeah, I'm an artist. Gotta be there.
All research.
Yeah.
Research.
I'm not gonna join in on the orgy. I don't really want to share my fluids. But damn, if I don't want to see what it's like. It's like, hey, you lived in LA this long. How many orgies have you been to? And I'd be like,
how disappointing.
I have a lot of stories, though, with Wasteland Weekend. That's a thing I do every year, except this year, because 2020.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that.
Oh, I love it so
not
much.
This year, though.
Ashley, how fucked up do you want to get? And do you want to get that fucked up in a desert? Wasteland Weekend.
Oh my god.
It's great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I have told a lot of people, I'm like, our tribe for Wasteland Weekend is fairly open. If you want to go at least once, we'd happy to give you some space under the big tent. No, Wasteland... Wait, Nox Kitsu says, this is not something I expected from the Fable bucket list. The Fable bucket list is quite large. The Fable bucket list includes eating a ghost pepper for no reason other than the sheer pain of it. It's not for a bit. I just want to be in that much misery for however many days. Actually, didn't I said, well, you guys picked up some ghost peppers. You're like, we have one extra. And I was like, I will drive 6 hours up there just to get that ghost pepper. And no, I don't care if it's on the internet or not. I don't give a shit. I just want the goddamn ghost pepper, and I want to suffer.
Once this COVID bullshit is over, we'll have a ghost pepper party.
Please.
All the milk will be locked in a iron safe.
If I go and get tested and I test negative, can I go and get that ghost pepper? I'll go get a flu vaccine at the same time.
Come on over. We'll have a misery party.
Yay! I'll bring beer.
Hell yeah.
Okay, we got 2 more questions to get through.
Let's do them.
Sorta. Okay, so, so small world events totally matter. Small, hey, are you on Discords and you chat with people? I think that's one of the best things to happen in modern internet, it's free-form chat forums again, basically, and that's Discord. And you know what? You're gonna make better friends there than on Twitter. Or maybe you don't, then you got some cool stories. So Claudia Hinojosa says, hello, nice to be here. One question, is it necessary to read the comics to understand and enjoy the story you gave us? It's more of a Lackadaisy question, so I'm just going to go over that really quickly. Mm-hmm. No, the short is designed for newcomers. It is a send-up, of course, to old-time fans of the series, but it is designed with newcomers in mind. It does not represent any single chapter of the comic. It's just kind of a buffet of things, let's say. It is a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and it involves the characters, and it's just supposed to be an introduction, basically. It is a pitch, it is a pilot, it is meant for you, people who have no idea what the fuck is with these cats. So you can just enjoy it as is. You don't have to read the comic. I recommend you read the comic, and I recommend you support Tracy, because, dear Lord, she has worked very hard on this comic, and even with the Kickstarter money coming in, she still is actually contributing money to the project. I'm not going to say how much, but she very, very much wants this to get made. She's a super dedicated person. She's very lovely. She's not making any money off of this short. I am astounded by the amount of care that she puts into this. Just please go support Tracy. Go find Lackadaisy on Patreon. Go give her your dollars.
Support the art you want to see in this rapidly homogenizing world, or it will disappear.
It will. It will absolutely. It doesn't take that much to make it or break it. So please help them make it. Anything that you love. So just anything you can do. And if you can't give $1, please just, like I said before, engagement matters. So anyway, that was a Lackadaisy question. I just had to skim over that real quick. Last question from Rocky Harmony, who I believe left, but hopefully they'll re-listen to this later. What is the best way to find and research publishers, and what all can you use a publishing service for? What can you use a publishing service for? I think that's a Spike question.
Okay, here is the deal about going with a publisher, and this is a question I get a lot. Like, in a world with Kickstarter and a world with Patreon, why should I even bother with seeking a publisher? And that's a totally fair question. And I am of the opinion that seeking a publisher is strictly voluntary and not non-mandatory these days. You do not have to have a publisher. There are lots of people on Patreon who will never publish a physical book, never seek a publisher, never have a publisher, never so much as glance in the direction of Kickstarter, and they do just fine being supported directly by their fans, making content exclusively for the internet, and they are perfectly happy with that. However, what a publisher can do for you is, speaking for myself, and this is kind of universal, and this is just a matter of scale as you change publishers between like me and Random House. I have access to, and not to toot my own horn, but at this point, Iron Circus Books, when I talk about how they are punching above their weight class, the books we put out sell at roughly the same sort of volume as books put out by much larger graphic novel publishers. So that's where we are. And a lot of that has to do with access to the same infrastructure that a individual creator will simply not have access to. A big part of that is my distributor. I am distributed by Ingram, which is an international distributor. Iron Circus books can be bought worldwide and are bought worldwide. I also have access to things that individual authors don't really have access to, which is, for example, something called NetGalley and another thing called Edelweiss. And NetGalley and Edelweiss are basically servers where you upload PDFs of your books to, and everyone from the New York Times to your local librarian signs up to read the PDF. And you get tracking for who has looked at all of your stuff, and that lets you know who is interested in your book so you can participate in more targeted advertising and promotion. I also have access to things called galley boxes, which is, there are 3,000 independent bookstores that are considered the top independent bookstores and the most influential independent bookstores in North America. And as a result, every once in a while, they get something called a galley box. They come in red and white. And for example, if I decide to put your book in the red galley box, 3,000 copies go out to all of these bookstore owners, who will then tell the other bookstore owners, hey, I found this cool thing, you should probably do it. The people who work at Ingram are a sales force. It's not like Diamond Distro. Diamond is quite possibly the worst distributor on planet Earth.
and that's a long story. That's a long story why.
We will not get into it here.
Just take it from a comics publisher. You might not, don't go through Diamond, basically.
The best way I can describe it is, let's say you are a 14-year-old girl and you are crushing on a 15-year-old boy, and he is your very first boyfriend, but he is the worst boyfriend on earth, but you don't realize it because you've never had a boyfriend before, so everything he does, you just assume that's what boyfriends do. Like when he leaves you on red, lifts you on date, as you pay for all his meals, makes fun of you in front of his friends. Like, you just assume this is what it is to have a boyfriend. Then, after he breaks up with you via text, because of course he does, you get a little older, and maybe you're like 18 or 19, and you get a 19-year-old boyfriend. And he brings you flowers, and he takes you out to dinner, and he pays attention to you when you talk, and you mentioned once in a conversation last week, boy, you like Chihuahuas. So the next time you go out on a date, he gets you a Chihuahua plushie and a Chihuahua t-shirt because he pays attention to you and he likes you. And he gives you his letter jacket and you wear it around school, and he hugs you and snuggles you and has a pet name for you, and he calls you Peanut, and you go to the drive-in theater and you just hold each other and look at the stars. And it just sort of occurs to you. I love
this scenario. Damn, Spike.
This is what it's like to have a boyfriend. This is what a boyfriend is. This is what it should be. My last boyfriend was bullshit asshole number 1. That was garbage. I didn't realize it because he was my first boyfriend, and I just thought that's what boyfriends did. That is Diamond compared to Ingram. Ingram is a good boyfriend.
We can go into even more on that, but we don't want to talk about that publicly because, oh boy, we've got some more Ingram stories like that.
Access to Idolized NetGalley, Galley boxes, Ingram, American Library Association meetings. Librarians have a ton of sway and a huge amount of power. Reviews in journals and library journals, very important. Access to bookstores. Mm-hmm. You can finagle access to bookstores as an independent creator. You will never do it on the scale of what Ingram can achieve for you. So it's honestly
the difference between having a lot of people in your corner who are specialized in knowledge that you cannot know versus just you or you and like a couple of friends. It's in the same way as like you wouldn't expect randos to be able to make a drawing in the level you do because you're an artist and that's your specialized knowledge. Well, guess what? Publishing is its own specialized knowledge. All this stuff, specialized knowledge. So if you can get those folks in your corner, it makes a big difference. A really big difference.
You are content with a world where if you run a Kickstarter and you sell 5,000 copies and that blows your mind and that's huge and that's amazing, if you are content with that, okay, maybe you don't need a publisher. If 5,000 is your ceiling of fantastical achievement.
And that's fine. Being small time, totally okay. Like we're socialist here. We don't believe in infinite growth. You can be totally comfortable being small time, and that is great. You know,
there is nothing wrong with selling 5,000 copies of a book, and
especially on your own. Like, damn.
Yeah, all by yourself. Like, oh my god, that's amazing. Good for you. But if your dream, if your ambitions for yourself include bigger numbers than that, and walking into Barnes & Noble and seeing your book on the shelf, dragging your mom and your dad into the local bookstore and pointing at your book on the shelf because, you know, that makes it real for you. Or, for example, like, I don't know if I want to get into it here, but suffice to say, if you want Corporation Incorporated requesting PDFs for optioning, yes, that can happen if you're independent. Is it likely? Not really. Whereas, for me, it's kind of a weekly occurrence. And again, that's not promising you anything. I cannot make people option your book. But if that is a door you want opened, regardless of whether or not anyone ever walks through, that is exceptionally difficult to wrangle as an independent creator. But it's literally a weekly occurrence if you work with a publisher. Publishers simply have access to things independent creators do not. If you do not want access to those things, cool, do you. If you do, a publisher is probably a good idea.
Mechanic87 says in chat, after this wraps up, I think I may go and dust off the outline to the pseudo-novel I put on hold a few years ago. I'm feeling inspired. And Nox Kitson says in response,
that'd be awesome.
Shop Talk has that effect. And I am really glad for that. I really want this podcast to be a way of like, okay, we have audience building for this project. In what way can we give back and like inspire other people to make more? Because that means there's more cool projects that I can like check out in the future. And then for the really cool people I know who I would love to talk to, like having some excuse to like, can I interview you? And like then we get to have like a really cool conversation. It's like then they can inspire you, and maybe I can get more eyeballs on their stuff because I don't know how many people in chat have actually heard of Spike. Like Spike travels in realms that are way above my head. But at the same time, how many people here in chat Knew of Spike.
one.
How many people here follow
No one.
Spike's Twitter? You know.
No, don't follow my Twitter, don't.
But it's
All I
full
do
of
is
delicious
talk about, like,
salt.
bullshit from the 90s and politics and pornography.
Excuse
Don't
me,
follow
that's that is a selling point. Here, I'm sorry, bullshit from the 90s, politics, and porn sounds like the perfect elements for a great Twitter account.
If you want to follow, can I do like my promo thing?
Go ahead, promo the fuck out of stuff. It's you're the guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
If
you're the guest
into,
boss.
If you're into stupid horse shit, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Iron_Spike. I'm extremely talkative. I like art history, pornography, and politics. If you'd rather just hear about Iron Circus Comics news, you can follow us on Twitter at Iron Circus Comics, all one word, with comics spelled C-O-M-I-X, because comics spelled properly will not fit.
Mike, would you care to post that in the chat? If you could.
I try and post links, but
I
it gets
said
angry
Mike,
at
not
me.
Spike. You
I
know
can
about
post it. What was that again? Could you say it again?
Yeah.
Oh sure. My personal Twitter is Iron_Spike. And my business Twitter, I guess, it's not like mine. There are like multiple posters to it. But the Iron Circus Twitter is Iron Circus Comics, with comics spelled C-O-M-I-X.
Thank you.
And if you want to follow us on Instagram, our Instagram name is just Iron Circus, all one word. And if for some reason you are still using Facebook, no judgment. If you just search Iron Circus Comics on there, you'll find the Iron Circus Comics page. Both the Instagram and the Facebook page are updated pretty much daily, and the Twitter is updated maybe once or twice daily.
We also encourage people to subscribe to the Lackadaisy YouTube channel. We are trying to grow the channel so that by the time the cartoon releases, then, you know, lots of people will get in their inboxes and everybody gets to see it, and it makes those lovely, lovely numbers that are all the studio heads care about, besides big names that they like to fluster about. So please give us a subscribe. You can also follow the Lackadaisy animated project at littledaisycafe.com. That is our development blog. Mike, do you need to be told how to spell that?
Spell what again? Yeah, I probably do need a spelling.
littledaisycafe.com. Little is Little.
I'll
got
get
it.
Mike.
Yeah. There we go,
it.
thank you. Lackadaisy.com is where you can find the comic that this is based on. And you can also find, on Twitter, you can find updates at Lackadaisy Cats, which is Tracy's Twitter. My Twitter, I frequently post about it as well, but it's not just going to be Lackadaisy stuff, and that's Fable Paint. And the film updates are Lackadaisy Film on Twitter.
Fable Paint has an underscore, correct?
No, it only has an underscore on Twitch, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just one word. Everywhere else, it's just Twitch, it got stolen. I don't know. But yeah, so Lackadaisy Film is our official film Twitter account. And our guest co-host, Ashley Nichols, is... What is it? Ashley Nichols Art?
It's Ash Nichols Art at Twitter. Don't follow me. I have enough followers. Go away.
Leave me alone.
Leave me be with my werewolves and sparkle dogs.
Yeah, don't you dare go where the werewolves and the sparkle dogs are at. Like, that's almost as bad as the porn and the nerd talk. Oh, who wants that? Okay.
Ew.
So Ash, so you are our first guest host, and have you learned anything today?
I have learned a ton. Honestly, you didn't even need me here. Like, God,
Yeah.
You guys have so much incredible input, and this has been super informative for me. I feel bad that I was just kind of like, hey, yeah, tell me things.
No. It's great to have a second head on board, because then you can ask things if anything occurs to you, and then also we're kind of talking to someone actively. Because we don't just talk to each other, we're also talking to you, and I can because I know you are trying to also fund your project, and you're looking into ways to do that, and so I figured you'd be an appropriate guest host, because this is a really relevant topic to you. And you haven't had a chance to really chat with Spike before, so I thought this would be informative. Yeah.
Yeah, Spike, it has been a huge pleasure. You are immensely talented and knowledgeable.
Thank you. Oh, get out of town. You're so kind.
Spike is really cool, and it's like... So... It's like, I don't know how much you pay attention to our work server, Spike, but I'm sure anytime you're in here, there's a lot going on. It's like, pick and choose. There's so much.
I should pay way more attention.
Yeah, you should see where the money's going. It's a lot of shit posting, actually. We're wasting all of it.
Right, the magic words!
Yeah! Dude, there is so much stupid art in this server. I can't wait to put it in an art book for all y'all to see. Like, half the book will be shit posts if I have my way. And
listen, that's what I buy art books for.
Shit posts. It's just, what were the
I want to know the stupid bullshit the crew got up to.
Dude, there is so much stupid shit. The drywall story will have to end up in the book at this rate. I am not tired of that yet. I've not been tired of it yet. Mike, it might take a year, Mike, before I stop embarrassing you.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I really appreciate you coming to listen to me talk nonsense.
Yes. It's not
Thank you
nonsense
for
at all.
joining, everyone.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, both of you, for enduring. I know this has been a long podcast, and
I'm gonna go have some tea, because I'm an old woman.
Get that tea. Ashley, we still gotta do our tea party.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, we got some, you guys will laugh, we got some maple syrup oolong from David's Tea. Here's a shout out, David's Tea, davidstea.com. You can go purchase some maple syrup oolong tea. Do you want to have a fancy sweet tooth? It's not overly sweet, actually. But it's delicious. It's my favorite out of all the new ones. And yes, thank you for Tracy for posting. The Discord for fans of Lackadaisy is discord.gg/Lackadaisy. If you don't know how to spell Lackadaisy, great news! It's in the thumbnail. That's how you spell it. Lackadaisy. Nobody knows this word anymore. So you go check it out. It's a very cool Discord. It's very well managed by our good man Newt, community manager, and also one of our crew members on the project. He's a really sweet guy. The mods are very good. The community
Shout
is
out
very
to
sweet.
Nox in the chat, too.
Shout out to Nox! Thank you, Nox, for your contribution. Thank you, Fetch, for your goddamn $100.
Yeah, thanks, Fetch. Really appreciate the support. It means a lot.
Thank you so much, Fetch.
Thank you.
Everybody who donated, thank you.
Because this project, like everybody on this version of the podcast is actually on crew, like all the money that's donated will be going towards Lackadaisy. Generally, Shop Talks, the guests that we have, we split the funds with them. So future Shop Talks, where we have other guests on, it will be given to them for their projects. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask, before we sign out, both Ashley and Spike, because you're sort of both guests on this, do you have any recommendations for future guests, or just people we should check out? That we can add to the list of maybe somebody that we can get in touch with. Primarily it's animation, but comics people
on I would recommend, like Worthy Kids, and
we already had him, yeah. But if you think of anybody, just some rando that you're just.
I'm gonna give you this challenge because I've been too much of a weenie to ask him onto my podcast. But you should absolutely try and grab Matt Braley, the creator of Amphibia.
Oh, that sounds like
How do you spell his last name?
Brally.
Brally. Let's see if
Actually, if we're shooting for the stars, I have been following Megan Nicole Dong for ages and ages. Have you had her on yet?
How do I spell it? No, we have not. Megan
Megan Nicole Nicole Dong Dong. She is doing a series for Netflix called Centaur World, but
I heard of that.
I know Katie Shanahan's working on that too. She would definitely join us.
Yeah, it's like I've been following her since she was doing a comic about a shark, and it's called
she did a whole book, didn't she, of like the shark stuff that was the shark.
Yeah, and it's incredibly stupid, and I love it so much. It's just so dumb. I really love just this big stupid shark. I think his name's Bruce.
Okay, Ashley, is there anything like a pie in the sky or just super dumb small thing person that you're just like, this would be a cool person to check out and maybe talk to? It doesn't matter.
Caitlin Vilbrandt, is a good friend of mine, and she has her own webcomic that she started from entirely nothing. That's been doing really well. She's run like multiple successful Kickstarters for books. She's a very unique and interesting and sweet person, and she deserves the spotlight.
How do you spell Caitlin?
Yeah.
Is that with a K or a C? And Vilbrandt?
Caytlin, and then Vilbrandt, Vilbrandt.
DT. Okay. Vilbrandt. I get it. Okay, cool. So, maybe we give those folks a look. I'll try to look them up, and maybe in the future they appear on a shop talk, but I always like getting our guests to say, like, what are you into? Because it's like, if we were just gonna go into what I am into and what Tracy's into, this is all we got. But you know what, there's so much more
I
to the
thought
world.
I recognized the name. Tamberlane, yeah, that's a beautiful comic.
Yeah, she's one of my oldest friends, and massively underrated.
Oh.
Nice.
Didn't
Yeah,
you
this
talk to
definitely
me about
deserves-
them at some point?
I
You're
think
like,
I
oh, yeah,
did mention
Tamberlane.
Tamberlane before, yeah.
Hey,
I know,
go-
like...
Hey, Ashley, go poke Caitlin at some point and be like, you want to be on a shop talk?
I absolutely will.
Yeah.
So-
I know
like-
I know she's been a huge fan of Tamberlane for many, many years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Or not
Yeah.
Lackadaisy, but
Oh.
I was like, I'm sure,
No,
I would hope she likes her own work.
I know that
I'm a huge fan of my own work.
Elson Wong, who did a whole like audio play of Lackadaisy, also did Tamberlane. So that's actually how I found out about it. So.
listen, it's 2 comics with words for names. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Don't fire me, please.
You expect me to keep it all straight?
That's not as bad as like my comic where it's just like not even English and it's
I
like,
frequently
obscure
do not
language.
I recognize the title of things better than I recognize author names, and it's terrible. But yeah. It's
Also,
I mean,
just
I
one
never
last piece of
recognize
advice
names.
before we go. One last piece of advice before we
Okay,
go.
okay.
And this is super important. If you plan on doing a comic, do yourself a favor. Quick Google. Just a quick Google of the title, what you plan on
Yeah.
calling it. It'll save you. And for the love of God, don't call it something that like don't call it darkness. Don't
Lies
call
of
it
Darkness.
Ultra
Spirit
generic names
Wolf
just make you really hard to
Darkness,
find
yeah.
amidst all the noise. Yeah.
Don't call it the tree. Like, give it a distinctive name that people are like, Iron
you
Circus
Google
Comics.
it?
Like, yeah, you remembered it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But give it a
Just
name that you can
memorable.
Google and find. Like, is it findable?
SEO optimization.
Dude,
Yes,
this is why
it
I do
matters.
not understand why Adobe changed Flash's name to Animate, because you do know how hard it is to find documentation on an animation program called Animate?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Thanks, guys. But yeah,
Right.
so thank you so much for joining us on Shop Talk. Your endurance is incredible. I hope we can, maybe in the future, we can have you guys back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was a really fun conversation.
This was fun.
And hey, chatting with the boss ain't so scary. Right?
Ah. Well, I'm sitting here in my pajamas and slippers.
Don't fire us, please.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Spike, for your time, and Ashley, thank you so much for stepping in and filling in for me because I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
lost in book editing hell over here. So I'm just trying to.
We love you, Tracy. We support you, Tracy.
Thank you,
Yes,
I
you're the
appreciate
best.
it.
It's looking beautiful. You guys are gonna love this
It's
book.
getting there.
She is bleeding over this damn book.
Your heads
hope
are gonna
so.
fall off. It's gonna be great.
All right, I think
Okay.
that's all. And yeah, toodles. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.